Hi, I'm Aileen. I called my mom from the hospital, 2 broken ribs, a concussion, and she laughed. She said, "Your sister just had a baby. No visit, no flowers, just silence. Until they needed my blood." But what if this wasn't about a baby at all? What if the accident was just the beginning, and the real betrayal had been happening for years? Want to know what my family really wanted from me? The beep of the heart monitor was the first thing I noticed when I woke up. That, and the sterile scent of antiseptic mixed with something faintly metallic. My throat was dry, my leg felt like a slab of stone, and every breath made my ribs scream. It took a full minute to understand where I was. St. Joseph's Medical Center. The clock on the wall read 4:17 p.m. The soft light streaming through the blinds told me it was late afternoon, but what hit me harder than the pain was the silence. No flowers, no notes, no missed calls, just a single IV drip, the dull hum of machines, and me. I pressed the nurse button twice before someone finally showed up. She smiled, told me I'd been out for nearly a day and a half, surgery went well, and they'd tried contacting my emergency contacts. That word, emergency contacts, felt heavier than it should have. I had just one listed, my mom. She hadn't come. I waited. Another hour. Then another. I stared at the phone on the table beside me like it might ring if I willed it hard enough. Eventually, I gave in. I picked it up and dialed her number. She answered on the third ring laughing, actually laughing. "Oh God, Aileen, you always call at the worst moments. Your sister just had her baby. Can't you go 5 minutes without drama?" I didn't say anything at first. My brain struggled to bridge the gap between what I expected and what I just heard. "I was in a car accident," I said slowly, like explaining it to a stranger. "Well, Lucy gave birth this morning. A little girl. We're here with her now, so if you're okay enough to call me, I guess you're not dying." The call ended just as casually as it began. "No, I love you." No concern. Just silence on the line after the last sentence, like I was someone who'd inconvenienced her. My fingers trembled as I placed the phone back on the table. That night, sleep didn't come easy. Every breath hurt, but not as much as the pit in my stomach. How many birthdays had they missed? How many holidays had I spent alone while Jolene, Lucy now, I guess, was always the star? The one they showed up for. I was the one with straight A's. The one who got the finance job out of college without help. I didn't get a balloon, not even a card. I was 34, and I felt like an orphan. The next morning, my phone started vibrating again. The screen flashed, Mom, then Dad, then back to Mom. Over 20 missed calls in less than an hour. I let them ring. I was too tired to care. By the afternoon, I answered, only because I was too worn out to ignore it. "Caroline, sweetheart." Mom's voice was suddenly soft, trembling, unrecognizable. "We need your help. It's urgent." My eyes narrowed. "Now it's urgent?" "It's about the baby," she said quickly. "Lucy's daughter. She has a rare blood condition. They need a transfusion urgently. You have the same type. Please, honey. You're the only match we know of." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Just yesterday, I was an overdramatic nuisance. Now, I was their only hope? "What hospital are you in?" I asked, voice sharp. "Florida Medical. We already arranged a ticket, first class. We'll cover it." "I'm in a hospital bed, Mom. I had surgery less than 48 hours ago. You didn't care when I was the one bleeding, remember?" Silence. Then a weak, "It's your niece, Aileen. She's family." Family. That word again, as if it still held the same weight. I remembered when I got accepted to Stanford for grad school. They didn't come to graduation. Lucy had a volleyball tournament. They never showed up for my big wins, only when they needed something. "I'll call you tomorrow," I said flatly. "You don't understand." "I do," I interrupted. "More than you think." I hung up. That night, as the Sacramento sky faded from pink to deep blue, I lay still, my thoughts racing. I knew my blood type wasn't rare. I also knew that what they really needed probably had nothing to do with blood. Something didn't add up, and for the first time, I wasn't going to jump just because they snapped their fingers. If I'd closed my eyes, maybe I could have pretended the hospital ceiling didn't look like a maze of fluorescent regret. But sleep wouldn't come. Not after that call. I lay there still and staring, the faint sounds of nurses at the station echoing down the hallway. My body ached, but the bigger pain wasn't physical. It was the realization that I was only family when they needed something. Not when I was alone on Christmas, not when I graduated top of my class. Only when I had something to offer. Why now? Why this urgency? I didn't need a medical degree to know babies usually didn't need specific family blood donors. There were banks for that. So what the hell were they really after? By sunrise, my head throbbed from the questions I couldn't answer. Then came the knock on the door. A tall man in a tailored navy blazer stepped in, holding a slim leather portfolio. He looked around 40, clean-cut, confident. "Aileen Mercer?" he asked. I sat up a little. "Yes, and you are?" "Clayton Voss. I'm an attorney. A mutual contact from your MBA program, Natalie Raymond, said you might need someone who knows how inheritance law works." "Inheritance law?" He took the chair beside me and opened the folder. "I believe your family is asking you to sign a set of documents related to Mercer Realty. Before you do, there's something you need to see." He placed a printed copy of a will on my lap. My grandfather's name was typed at the top. "According to this, you were left 25% ownership in Mercer Realty. Your name, not Jolene's, not your parents', yours." I didn't say anything. My pulse pounded in my ears. "I'm sorry, but—" "What?" I finally whispered. "They never told you. That part's clear," he said gently. "But from what I can tell, your grandfather intended you to have a controlling vote in future board actions." A wave of vindication hit me so hard it made me dizzy. All those years of being treated like I didn't matter. And now I learned I was the one they needed. The one with the power. "I don't even work there," I muttered. Clayton gave a dry smile. "Doesn't change your rights." Before I could process anything further, another knock came at the door. Laurel Sloan stepped in, my old roommate and now a licensed therapist. She held a paper bag and a bouquet of wildflowers. "I brought muffins and moral support," she said. Clayton stood politely, nodding to her before excusing himself. Laurel sat by my bed, handing me a muffin. "You look like you got hit by a truck." "Technically, I did." She blinked. "Oh, right. Sorry." I laughed, an actual laugh, sharp and surprised. Then I told her everything. She listened without interruption, then leaned in and said, "This isn't paranoia. Your gut's been warning you. Trust it. And keep that lawyer close." I nodded. "I don't know how to feel." "That's okay. Just don't sign anything." Clayton returned shortly after with a small envelope. "These are copies of the documents they want you to sign," he said. "It's all phrased like you're releasing medical liability. But buried in the legalese, you'd be signing away your voting rights and shareholdings." My breath caught. "They need your signature, Aileen. That's why they're calling. That's what this is really about." I stared at the documents. Outside the window, the morning sun glinted off the rooftop of a nearby building. If I hadn't been hit by that truck, I would have signed it without a second thought. Clayton left with a nod, promising to check in the next day. I stayed in bed, holding the documents like they were radioactive. I flipped through each page. The signatures were real. The notary seal was clear. Everything about it screamed legitimacy, on the surface. I whispered into the stillness, "Why wouldn't they tell me?" 5 years. 5 years they kept this secret and smiled in my face like nothing was off. I could feel my jaw clench. An email alert buzzed on my phone. No sender, no subject line, just a message. "Your grandfather knew who you were." Attached was a grainy photo of a handwritten note. I recognized the loops and angled cursive. It was Ernesto's handwriting. Below it, a scan of what looked like a will. My name, clear as day, next to a 25% allocation. It wasn't typed. It wasn't legalese. It was real. Another line, typed below the images. "I've kept this safe. I knew they'd hide it. Linda Collins." My stomach dropped. Linda had been our housekeeper from when I was 8 until college. She was kind, firm, and always quietly watching. She was the one who slipped extra cookies into my lunch when Jolene accidentally left me out of hers. I remembered a night, I must have been 11, when I heard yelling from downstairs. My dad and his brother were arguing. "Dad wanted Aileen on the board!" Desmond's voice was furious. "Not Jolene! My father's voice snapped back, cruel and cold. She's too soft. She doesn't have the stomach for this business. I hadn't thought about that night in years, but now it rushed back like a flood. Linda must have known everything, and she waited. Until now. I reached over to the hospital bag Laurel had brought from my apartment. Inside, tucked into a hidden pocket of my old planner, was an outdated contact list from grad school. Desmond Mercer. I hadn't spoken to him since I was a teenager. He vanished after some family disagreement, which, in hindsight, probably meant Dad shoved him out too. I stared at his number. My finger hovered over the call button. Then I tapped. The line rang once, twice. Then a gravelly voice answered. Hello? It was older, rougher than I remembered, but unmistakable. Is this Aileen? I pulled the phone tighter to my ear. Uncle Desmond? There was a pause, like he didn't believe it. My God, you sound like your mother, but sharper. You okay? I've been better. Hospital bed, cracked ribs, and apparently a secret fortune I wasn't supposed to know about. Another silence, then a sigh. They did it to me too, kid. Different decade, same lies. Your grandfather trusted you just like he trusted me. They shut me out after the funeral. I rubbed my forehead. Why? Because control doesn't go to the obedient. It goes to the inconvenient ones, the ones who question everything. You were always the sharp one, Aileen. I saw it before anyone else did. I sat up slowly. Can we meet after I'm discharged? You say when. I've waited a long time to tell you the truth. We hung up. 10 minutes later, my phone lit up again. Dad. Against better judgment, I answered. Aileen, he said, too calm. We're worried. Jolene's still waiting in Florida. The car's already at the airport. I'm not coming. A beat. Don't be childish. I know about the will. Silence. I know what Grandpa left me, and I know you've been trying to erase it. His voice changed, harder, sharper. This isn't about the past. This is about family unity, alignment. Don't talk to me about family. You left me bleeding in a hospital and now you want my signature? Click. A new message popped in from Clayton. Attached was the full contract, pages and pages disguised as a generic medical release. But buried in the fine print, in tangled legalese, was the truth. If I signed it, I'd hand over every right to Mercer Realty. It was a trap. I called back. Dad, I said coldly, try and send me another lie like that again, and I swear I'll send the truth, every last page, to a lawyer and the press if I have to. He didn't reply. The line went dead. For the first time in years, I felt something stronger than fear. Power. Clayton showed up around 9, holding a travel mug and a folder so thick it looked like it could bruise someone. I went through the entire contract, he said, no small talk. Every page. You were right. This was never about the baby. I nodded, jaw tight. They were hoping I'd be too hurt to notice. They almost succeeded. I told him about the call from my father, how he pivoted from faux concern to veiled threats in under 2 minutes. Clayton listened closely, eyes narrowing. They're pushing because they're desperate, and that makes them sloppy. He pulled a printout from the folder and slid it to me. Desmond called. He got internal records. Mercer Realty is bleeding out. Bad investments, fake write-offs, borderline fraud. My stomach nodded. So this isn't just personal, it's survival. They're trying to save the company by selling your stake behind your back. Your shares are the only ones not tied up in debt. I leaned back against the pillow. Of course. Why earn trust when they can just steal it? Desmond joined our call via video a few hours later. His face looked worn, but his eyes were sharp. You were their failsafe, Aileen, and now you're the firewall. He sent over old board memos, damning ones. I skimmed them, heat rising in my chest. They made me believe I was invisible. All this time, I was the threat. Clayton adjusted his glasses. So we moved first. We drafted a legal letter freezing my voting rights temporarily, on my terms. Demand for full transparency, no further contracts. A warning at the end. Any further attempts to solicit a signature without counsel present will result in legal escalation. It was the first thing I signed all week. That evening, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Jolene, a voice memo. You think you're saving something, Aileen? You're not. You're ruining everything. I didn't reply. I didn't delete it either. I wasn't ruining everything. I was uncovering it, layer by filthy layer. The next morning, A man in a blazer showed up at my hospital room with a silver envelope and a rehearsed smile. Delivery for Miss Aileen Mercer, from Mercer Holdings. He didn't wait for a signature. Inside was a formal letter laced with syrupy corporate jargon and an undertone so bitter it could rot teeth. It accused me of willfully destabilizing family operations and inflicting emotional strain on my mother, who, just 5 days ago, laughed when I called from a trauma bed. Tucked in the corner of the page, in neat script, was a handwritten note. "Don't burn bridges you might need. Jolene." I stared at it for a long time before setting it down. Clayton arrived an hour later. I handed him the letter without a word. He read it, then exhaled through his nose. "So now they're playing nice mean." His response wasn't just legal, it was surgical. A cease and desist addressed directly to Mercer Realty's board, citing manipulation, harassment, and intent to defraud. Attached were receipts, emails, phone records, even a breakdown of the disguised contract. "We're not just freezing your vote," he said. "We're holding a mirror up to every lie they've built." Right after lunch, Desmond called. "Brace yourself. Jolene's called an emergency board session for tomorrow. They want to freeze your shares." I laughed, sharp and dry. Let them try. "They're coming at this from all sides, Aileen. Your father's furious. Jolene's saying you've jeopardized your niece's treatment. They're calling you unstable." Of course they are. When truth doesn't work, they invent a new story. That night, I listened to Jolene's voice note again. At 32 seconds, the fake concern curdled into threat. "You've always been jealous. Just remember, little sister, when you tear things down, don't be surprised when they fall on you." I forwarded the clip to Clayton with a note. "If they come for me, I'm coming for all of them." And I knew exactly where to start. Marcus's face appeared on my laptop screen just after noon. He looked nervous, but determined. "I found something," he said without preamble. "Metadata logs from the contract files. Your father and Jolene modified them. They renamed the file to mimic a hospital document, changed timestamps, even spoofed an internal approval chain." I clenched the armrest. "Are you sure?" "They left fingerprints, sloppy ones, a rush job." I closed my eyes for a moment. "That's felony fraud, Marcus." He nodded slowly. "I know." By late afternoon, Desmond called. His voice was tight. "They held a virtual board session. Without you. I recorded part of it." He sent over the file. I clicked play. "She's too reactive," Jolene sneered. "No real edge, always so eager to please." Then my father. "She's been a liability since day one. She's only dangerous now because she knows too much." And in the background, clear as day, my mother. "She won't push back. She never has." My chest didn't burn this time. It froze. I opened my LinkedIn account, paused, then typed, "There's always more to the story, especially when you're the one they tried to erase." I hit post. Within minutes, messages started rolling in, former employees, old colleagues. "About time." "We're watching." "We've got your back." Clayton pinged me. That got their attention. 10 minutes later, his assistant slid an envelope under my hospital door. It was a cease and desist. "Defamatory behavior will result in immediate legal consequences," it read. Thick, glossy, expensive paper. I stared at it, then tore it in half and stuffed it into the biohazard bin beside my bed. They wanted war? They were about to see exactly what I'd inherited. The Mercer boardroom looked exactly as I remembered it. Cold, cavernous, intimidating. But this time I didn't walk in as the outsider. I came in on crutches, yes, but I stood taller than ever. Clayton walked beside me, Desmond just behind. Jolene glanced up from her seat, startled to see me there in person. Dad stiffened. His hands were clasped in front of him, like a man bracing for a storm. Across the long table sat Diane Richter, an independent board member Grandpa once called the last honest person on payroll. She nodded once, then gestured for us to sit. "Let's proceed," she said. Before anyone else could speak, a screen blinked to life at the end of the table. "Sorry to interrupt," came a man's voice, Lyle Harland, former investor. "Thought the board should hear why I divested last year." Jolene froze. "I have documentation showing Jolene Mercer manipulated quarterly results tied to the Sunview project in Phoenix. Internal forecasts were inflated. She doctored figures. Clayton has the originals." Clayton slid a folder across the table. Time-stamped emails, confirmed with server logs. Jolene's face went white. Dad snapped, "This isn't the time or place." "It's exactly the time," Diane said flatly. I stood slowly and passed out printed copies of my proposal. Effective immediately. I'm reinstating my full voting rights. Jolene will step down. Mercer Realty will issue a formal statement acknowledging falsified royalty filings, and Franklin will return 5% of grandfather's shares to Desmond, shares he was forced to forfeit under duress. Diane reviewed it all in silence, then said, "This is sound." Dad slammed his fist on the table. "She'll destroy this company." "Or rebuild it with actual integrity," Diane replied. A vote was set for the next morning at 9 a.m. As I stood to leave, I looked at my father and said, "Sleep well, Dad." The boardroom was colder than I remembered it. Maybe it was just me. At 9 a.m. sharp, Diane called the vote. Each member's voice echoed through the speaker. "Yes, yes, yes." One abstained. That was enough. My proposal passed. Jolene's face didn't flinch, but her hand gripped the table like she was bracing for impact. She stood and left without a word. Franklin followed, slower, shoulders hunched. He didn't argue, didn't look back. I stood taller than I had in weeks, even with crutches under each arm. By noon, the press release went live. Mercer Realty admitted to oversight in filings and confirmed my reinstatement. Clayton watched it all unfold with a calm satisfaction. But even as my name appeared in the headlines, I didn't feel victorious, just intact. Desmond walked beside me as we exited the building. "You didn't just win, kid," he said. "You survived them." I gave a half smile. I'm still bleeding in places no one sees. That night, I returned to my apartment for the first time since the accident. It smelled like lavender and silence. I hadn't even taken off my coat when my phone buzzed. A voice message from Mom. I hesitated, then pressed play. "I hope you're proud of what you've done," she said, her voice clipped, emotionless. "You've torn this family apart." No apology, no remorse, just a final jab. I didn't respond. Instead, I opened my old journal, flipping past pages written in hope, in disappointment, in pain. I wrote one line under today's date. I didn't tear us apart. I just stopped pretending we were ever whole. I placed Grandpa's framed photo back on the shelf, facing the window. Then I turned on my laptop. A message from a new investor blinked at the top of my inbox. I began typing. I used to think being quiet was safer, that if I just kept my head down and worked harder, someday someone would notice. That family, no matter how broken, still meant something solid. But I've learned that blood doesn't make you safe, and silence doesn't make you strong. Standing up for myself cost me a lot. The illusion of loyalty, the fantasy of a loving family. But what I gained was real. Truth, clarity, and for the first time, a future I chose, not one handed to me in pieces. So if you're watching this and you've ever felt erased, used, or underestimated, just know, your voice matters. Your worth isn't up for negotiation, not even with people who share your DNA. You don't owe anyone your peace just to keep them comfortable. Now, I'd love to hear from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family to protect your peace? Do you think forgiveness always requires reconciliation? Let's talk about it in the comments. If this story moved you, if it hit somewhere deep, drop a 1 in the comments or just tell me what city or state you're watching from. I'd love to know. And if you're new here or you want more stories that speak truth, power, and healing, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. It helps this channel keep telling real stories for real people. See you in the next one.
I'm Jessica, and up until I turned 28, the most exciting thing that had happened in my life was when the accounting firm I worked at switched from PCs to Macs. Not exactly thrilling stuff. But then, one night at a friend's birthday party, everything changed. I was standing in the corner of a crowded living room, holding a soda and feeling awkward in my too tight dress. The music was loud, too loud to talk, but apparently perfect for him, Andrew. He was taller than most, which is probably why he noticed me. He walked over confidently, making my heart race. "Hey, you're Jessica, right?" His voice was clear, even over the pounding music. "Yeah, and you are?" I asked, trying to sound calm as I sipped my drink. Andrew, I've seen you around. Mind if I join you? He didn't wait for a response, just stood beside me. Not at all, I said, barely heard over the pop song blasting through the speakers. So, Jessica, what brings you here tonight? He asked casually, though his eyes seemed focused. Just here for Karen's birthday. You know her? Yeah, we went to college together. She keeps inviting me to these things. Can't say no, can I? He shrugged, and we both laughed. It felt easy, natural. I get it. I work with her. She's hard to say no to, I replied. An accountant, right? She mentioned. He nodded like he already knew. Yep, that's me. Numbers are my thing. I joked, though I never found spreadsheets that funny. Sounds exciting, he said with a grin, and I couldn't tell if he was teasing or not. Oh, totally. It's all wild parties and high stakes in the world of accounting. We laughed again, and for the first time, I felt comfortable talking to someone who seemed genuinely interested. Want to get some air? He asked, motioning towards the backyard. I nodded, glad to escape the noise. Outside, the cool air was refreshing. So, what brings a guy like you to a party like this? I asked, trying to sound confident. Just looking for a good time, he said with a smile. Maybe I was also looking for someone cool to hang out with, he said with a smile that made the corners of his eyes crinkle. We chatted about everything and nothing, movies, books we liked, and how he was into graphic design but stuck in a job he didn't love. It felt like we had known each other forever. As the night came to an end, he pulled out his phone. Can I get your number? I'd really like to see you again, Jessica. I hesitated for a second, not used to this kind of attention, but something about him felt right. Sure, I said, typing my number into his phone. He smiled, his face lighting up. Great, I'll call you. We should go out, just the two of us. Sounds good, I managed to say, my stomach doing flips. I watched him leave, still in disbelief that this was my life now. Maybe turning 28 wasn't so bad after all, maybe it was just the beginning of something great. The days after Andrew called went by in a blur, and before I knew it, I was getting ready for our first date. I was so nervous. I didn't have much experience with dating. I picked out a simple blue dress, nothing too fancy, but I hoped it looked good. Andrew showed up right at 9. His car was a clean, well-kept sedan, not flashy, but it suited him. When I got in, he smiled at me, and it was the kind of smile that could make you weak in the knees. You look great, Jessica. Thanks, I mumbled, feeling my face turn red. You look nice too. We went to a cozy little Australian restaurant he knew. The food smelled amazing, but my nerves had my stomach in knots. He ordered pasta with a fancy sauce, and I stuck to simple marinara. So, Jessica, tell me something about you that no one else knows, he asked, twirling his spaghetti effortlessly. I chuckled, more focused on playing with my food than eating it. Well, I'm pretty boring, but not many people know I can solve a Rubik's Cube in under a minute. He raised his eyebrows. Really? That's pretty impressive. You'll have to show me sometime. Sure, I said, starting to relax. What about you? Got any hidden talents? I make a killer breakfast burrito, he said with a grin. Best you'll ever have. I'll take your word for it. Maybe you can prove it sometime, I teased. The conversation flowed, and for the first time in a long while, I felt like I was exactly where I was supposed to be. The next few weeks flew by as we spent more time together. Andrew would come over after work, or I'd meet him for lunch near his office. He introduced me to his favorite spots around town, hidden gems I'd never noticed before. I had never noticed the city like this before. It felt like I was seeing it for the first time. Things got serious when Andrew asked me to meet his parents, Charles and Shirley. They lived in a small but cozy house, filled with family photos and little decorations. As soon as we walked in, Shirley hugged me tightly. Oh, we've heard so much about you, dear, she said, smiling warmly. She's lovely, Mom, Andrew said, and I could see he was happy. We sat down for dinner, and the conversation flowed easily. So, Jessica, Andrew tells us you're an accountant. That must be interesting, Charles said as he passed me the potatoes. It has its moments, I replied. Mostly just numbers, but I like the order of it. And how's your family? Shirley asked, genuinely interested. They're good, thanks. My dad's a businessman, always busy, but he's been really supportive of me. Everything was happening quickly, but it felt right. It was like my whole life had led up to this moment. For the first time, I felt like someone truly saw me not just as a regular accountant, but as something more. A few months into our whirlwind romance, Andrew and I were walking by the riverbank. The city lights reflected on the water, giving everything a postcard-like beauty. "Jessica, I've been thinking," Andrew said, stopping and turning to face me. "Yeah," I asked, my heart starting to beat faster. "I don't want to wait any longer. I know this is fast, but will you marry me?" Just like that, my world changed. Without hesitation or doubt, I said, "Yes, Andrew, I'll marry you." The whirlwind didn't stop there. Soon after, I introduced Andrew to my dad, and they hit it off right away. My dad appreciated Andrew's honesty and how much he cared about me. "He's a good man, Jessica," Dad said, giving his approval, which meant everything to me. So, we got married. It wasn't a huge, fancy wedding, but it was perfect for us. I even loved the way I looked in my wedding dress, something I hadn't expected. Smiling, I shared pictures on social media, happy to show my joy to friends and family. After the wedding, life didn't slow down, it sped up. We barely had time to enjoy our newlywed life when Andrew suggested something big. "Hey, Jessica, I've been thinking," he said one evening while we unpacked another box of wedding gifts in our small apartment. "How about we move in with my folks?" I paused, holding a coffee mug. "Live with your parents?" He nodded, looking serious. "Yeah. They're getting older, and I'd feel better if we were there to help out. Plus, it'd save us money on rent." It made sense, I guess, but moving in with the in-laws? That felt like something out of a sitcom. "Are you sure they'd want us there all the time?" I asked. "Absolutely," Andrew said confidently. "Mom's been hinting about it since we got engaged. It'll be good, trust me." So, 3 weeks later, we pulled up to his parents' house with all our stuff packed in boxes. Andrew's mom, Shirley, was already on the porch, waving before we even got out of the car. "Oh, Jessica, we're so thrilled to have you both here," she exclaimed, pulling me into a tight hug. Charles, Andrew's dad, gave him a pat on the back. "Welcome home, son. And you too, Jessica." The house was cozy, but packed with old furniture that looked like it belonged in a museum from the 1965s. I forced a smile, but I already missed our little apartment. Andrew noticed. "It's going to be great, you'll see," he whispered as we carried the boxes inside. The first few days were a big adjustment. Shirley was always around, constantly popping into our room to ask if we needed anything. "Just making sure you're comfortable," she'd chirp, while I tried not to cringe at the lack of privacy. One evening, we all sat down for dinner, Andrew, me, Charles, and Shirley. The conversation was pretty dull until Andrew dropped a bombshell. "So, the house needs some major repairs," he said casually mid-bite of meatloaf. I nearly choked on my mashed potatoes. "Repairs?" "Yeah, the roof's in bad shape and the plumbing is ancient," he explained. Charles nodded seriously. "We were thinking," Andrew continued, avoiding my eyes, "that maybe we could all chip in for the costs." I glanced at Shirley, who was suddenly very focused on her plate. "All of us?" I asked. "Well, I just got a pay cut at work," Andrew mumbled. "So, I'm a bit short right now." There it was. I felt a knot form in my stomach. "I'll see what I can do," I said, even though I wanted to say a lot more. Shirley looked up, tears in her eyes. "Oh, Jessica, that would be so helpful. You're such an angel." The next few weeks were a blur of contractors and repairs. I wrote checks and smiled through clenched teeth while Shirley gushed about how great the house was starting to look. Charles gave me a pat on the back. "You're really part of the family now, Jessica." Part of the family? More like the part that pays for everything. One particularly tough day, after making more expensive decisions, I collapsed on the bed, completely drained. Andrew came in and sat next to me. "Thanks for handling all this, Jessica," he said, sounding almost sincere. "It's fine," I lied, staring at the ceiling. "I just didn't realize it would cost so much." He squeezed my hand. "It'll all be worth it. This is for our future, right?" "Our future," I echoed, not really sure whose future we were building anymore. As I lay there, listening to Andrew's steady breathing, I couldn't help but wonder if moving in was the right choice. But there was no turning back now. I was in too deep, and I had to see it through no matter the cost. After the renovations, the house looked amazing, like something from a magazine. Despite the financial strain, I felt a little proud when I looked around. We decided to have a small dinner party to celebrate, just the 5 of us. But that's when things took a turn. In the middle of dinner, as we were laughing and sharing stories, Shirley suddenly got quiet. The mood shifted, and the room felt heavy. She looked at Charles, then at us, her eyes filling with tears. "We need to tell you both something important," she said, her voice shaky. Andrew and I exchanged worried looks. "What's going on?" I asked, feeling a knot form in my stomach. Charles sighed deeply. "The house, it's heavily mortgaged. We owe $550,000, and if we don't pay it off in 3 months, the bank will take it." My fork dropped onto my plate. "What? You mean after all the repairs we just paid for?" Shirley started crying. We were ashamed. We thought we could handle it, but after all the repairs, there's just no way. It felt like I was trapped in a nightmare. All the money, all the effort for a house that wasn't even safe from being taken away. "So, what are you saying now?" I asked, my voice sharper than I meant. Andrew hesitated, avoiding eye contact. "I was hoping maybe, Jessica, you could talk to your dad." "Are you serious?" I snapped, my voice rising. "Ask my dad for $550,000? It's just with his help, the house would be secure for us, for our future," Andrew said, pleading. Shirley's sobs got louder, and I felt like the bad guy in this crazy situation. "Please, Jessica," she cried. "This is our home. We've spent decades here." I was furious, but their tears and desperation wore me down. "I'll think about it," I muttered, feeling trapped. The next day, I reluctantly called my dad and explained the situation. To my surprise, he agreed to help, but with one condition. "I'll give the money, Jessica, but only if we have a formal agreement." "I want everything documented," he said. When I told Andrew, he wasn't happy. "Why does it have to be so formal? Can't he just trust us?" "It's $550,000, Andrew. That's a lot of money. He's just being cautious," I said, feeling the distance growing between us. "He'll get his paperwork," Andrew muttered, clearly annoyed. We got the paperwork drawn up, and the money was transferred. Shirley and Charles were relieved, thanking me constantly, but things between Andrew and me felt different. There was a coldness between us that hadn't been there before. Just when I thought things couldn't get worse, tragedy hit out of nowhere. "Jessica, it's your Aunt Emma," came a shaky voice over the phone. "Your dad, he had a heart attack. It's bad." My heart sank.
What?
"How is he?" She paused, then said the words I never expected to hear. "He didn't make it." "Honey, I'm so sorry," and Emma's voice echoed through the phone. I almost dropped it. "No, that can't be right," I mumbled, feeling numb. I hung up and turned to see Andrew standing in the doorway. "What's wrong?" he asked, his voice low. "My dad, he's gone," I managed to say before breaking down in tears. Andrew came over and put his arm around me, but it felt like I was being hugged by a stranger. "I'm sorry, Jessica," he said, and while he sounded sincere, I was too deep in my grief to fully take it in. After another exhausting day of funeral planning, I came home earlier than usual. I expected the house to be quiet, but as I unlocked the door, I heard voices coming from the living room. It was Andrew, speaking to his parents in a frustrated tone. "I can't do this anymore. Living with her is driving me crazy." It's too much," Andrew complained. His mom, usually so kind and understanding, responded in a sharp whisper. "You just have to hold on a little longer, Andrew. We need to figure out what to do with those receipts from her father. Jessica has them now. The sooner I'm out, the better. I'll grab those receipts, destroy them, and then I'll move on with that rich woman I told you about." Andrew's voice was cold, calculating. A chill ran down my spine. Here I was, mourning my father, while the people I trusted were plotting behind my back. They weren't the loving family I thought I had married into. They saw me as nothing more than a way to solve their money problems. Anger and shock surged through me, but I knew I had to stay calm. I slammed the door loudly, pretending I had just walked in, cutting off their scheming. "Oh, Jessica, you're back early. How did the funeral plans go?" Shirley's voice instantly shifted to one of concern, her eyes wide with fake innocence. I forced a smile, even though my stomach churned. "It's all coming together. Thanks for asking." I caught a quick glance they exchanged, their faces masked with false concern. It made my skin crawl, knowing their real intentions. But I realized now wasn't the time to show my hand. I needed to be smart, protect what was mine, and maybe even get some justice for their deceit. The funeral was somber, filled with quiet condolences and heavy grief. But when we returned to Andrew's parents' house, their true colors began to shine through. As we sat in the living room, sipping lukewarm coffee, Andrew's charming facade crumbled. With a cold laugh, he looked directly at me and said, "Jessica, pack your things. You need to get out." "I've got someone else now, someone better," Andrew said. His words should have hurt, but I pretended to be shocked. Before I could respond, Shirley chimed in with a nasty laugh. "We've really had enough of you, dear. We only kept you around for your money." "What about the house?" I asked, trying to sound innocent. "The house I paid to fix? The $550,000 I spent." Shirley laughed even harder, like I had told the funniest joke. "Oh, sweetie, this house is ours. You're nothing here." Andrew's smirk widened. "And those receipts you're so proud of? I found them at your dad's house and burned them. They're gone." For a moment, I let them think they had won. Then I couldn't help it, I burst out laughing. My reaction threw them off, and their smiles started to fade. "Why are you laughing? What's so funny?" Andrew demanded. Wiping away a tear, still chuckling, I replied, "You three are pathetic. You think you're so clever? The receipts you destroyed? They were just copies. The real ones are safe with my lawyer." Their faces went pale, and Andrew's arrogance quickly turned to panic. "You can't prove anything," he stammered. "I can, and I will," I said firmly. "Now, I want my money back, all of it, or my next call is to the police." Andrew and Charles exchanged nervous glances. The confidence they had moments ago was gone. Charles, usually so bold, started to plead, "Jessica, please, let's talk about this. We can work something out." With the truth out and all the power in my hands, the negotiations dragged on longer than I expected. It was clear they were trying every trick to shift things in their favor, but I wasn't backing down. "Look, it's simple," I said firmly during one of our many discussions at the kitchen table, now legally mine. "The house gets transferred to my name in exchange for the IOUs. That's the deal. No more games." Finally, they gave in. We agreed to make everything official and legal. I insisted that everything be handled by a lawyer with proper paperwork.
I emfasissa.
At the lawyer's office, the atmosphere was tense as the documents were signed and notarized. I watched closely as every signature was applied, making sure there was no room for any further tricks. Once everything was finalized, I knew I had won. I gathered the documents for the house transfer and turned to Andrew's mother, who looked defeated but still carried a trace of her old self. "I'll be keeping these in a safe place," I said, holding up the papers before slipping them into a folder, just to make sure no one tries anything. With the legal stuff handled, the divorce process was straightforward. Andrew stayed quiet, his earlier arrogance gone. When the final papers were signed, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. It was like closing a chapter. On the day they moved out, I stood on the porch of my now fully owned house, watching Andrew, his mom, and Dad load their things into a rental van. They moved slowly, and the mood was somber. I felt a mix of satisfaction and sadness. This wasn't how I thought my marriage would end, but given the situation, it was the best outcome. After things settled down, and I began to enjoy my newfound peace, I heard through friends that Andrew was in a tough spot. His new girlfriend had dumped him shortly after our divorce, and his parents were now living in a cramped apartment, far from the comfort they once had. Karma had come for them quicker than I expected. Despite their situation, they started reaching out to me, calling and messaging, probably hoping to worm their way back into my life. Or, at least my house. But I was done with their lies. I blocked their numbers without a second thought and cut them off on social media. It felt freeing, finally breaking the last ties between us. One afternoon, as I was enjoying a quiet moment with a book in my living room, there was a knock at the door. Peeking through the peephole, I saw Andrew standing there, looking pitiful, holding a bouquet of flowers. The nerve of it made me laugh. I opened the door and couldn't help but chuckle at the sight of him. Really, Andrew? Flowers? He shifted uncomfortably, the flowers wilting along with his confidence. Jessica, I've realized so many things. I was wrong, terribly wrong. Remember when I told you disgusted me? I interrupted, leaning against the door frame, amused by his discomfort. What changed, Andrew? Did you run out of options? He looked down, clearly ashamed. I made mistakes, but I'm here to make things right. I shook my head, almost feeling sorry for him almost. You're not here to make things right, Andrew. You're just desperate to get back to your old, comfortable life. But guess what? That life doesn't exist anymore, not for you. His face fell, and he took a step back, as if my words had hit him like a punch. Jessica, please, he started. Save it. I cut him off, my voice sharp. I was done. I want you to leave. Don't come back. We're done forever. Andrew stood there for a moment, his hope fading away. Without saying anything, he turned and walked off, his shoulders slumped in defeat. I went back to my book, a small smile on my face. The quiet in the house felt like a warm, comforting blanket, so different from the chaos that once filled it. I was finally at peace, living life on my own terms. No flowers or sweet words could change that. I was truly, finally free. Welcome to our channel, where we dive into real-life relationship issues and everyday challenges. Today, we'll discuss a situation many people can relate to, but few would ever want to experience. Let's start with a personal story. Names and ages have been changed to protect privacy, as some of my family members are active on Reddit, Revenge, and if this goes viral, it could make things even worse than they already are. I'm asking for constructive advice, only no harsh comments. Please. I'm already hurting enough. The title says it all. My stepsister is dating my ex. Sounds unbelievable, right? Trust me, I couldn't believe it either. But there's more. It's not just a casual fling. They're committed and planning to get married in a month, and I'm expected to act like I'm happy for them. My whole family seems to be celebrating, and they didn't even stop to consider how I might feel about this. The situation is tearing me apart. I'm still not over my ex, and now I'm forced to see him move on right in front of me. What's worse is that everyone in my family knows about our past. They know we were together for over 2 years, and yet my ex managed to move on within just 3 months. We had plans to get married someday, but he left me over a lie. Someone told him I cheated, which I never did, and I swear that with all my heart. I tried to explain and stand my ground, but he refused to believe me. He called me a cheater and a liar, and then, just like that, replaced me with my stepsister. Of all the people in the world, he chose her. It feels intentional, like he knew exactly how much this would hurt me. He knew our history, and he knew what this would do to me. Now I'm stuck pretending to be okay, when inside, I'm devastated. I'm not looking for pity, but I do need some advice on how to handle this. How do I get through something like this when it feels like my world has fallen apart? I've been through so much because of her, and how terribly she's always treated me. Despite everything, he still had the audacity to do this to me. The worst part? They look completely in love. The cold, distant guy I used to know is gone, and now there's this new, kinder version of him that's surfaced. It seems like he's changing and trying to be a better man for her. It hurts even more knowing that he loves her. I did nothing wrong, yet she's the one he chose. My family hasn't helped at all. Instead, they've rubbed it in my face, constantly reminding me how much he's changed now that he's found the right person. Their words cut deeper than anything. And through all of this, I've had to pretend to be happy for them. What really gets to me is how Everyone's acting like it's perfectly normal for my stepsister to date my ex, even though they know we were together for 2 years and had plans to marry. It feels like everyone has betrayed me. I honestly don't know how I'm going to make it through this next month, with the wedding preparations in full swing. Every moment just chips away at me a little more. I can't help but think about running away, escaping this whole mess, and starting a new life far from all this chaos. It sounds so simple, especially when you're heartbroken and desperate for a way out. I don't even know why life is putting me through so much, but I just want the pain to stop.
I wish my dad were still alive.
He would understand my heartbreak, and he'd believe me when I say I never cheated. I know now that was just an excuse my ex used to leave me. And my mother? She's taken my stepsister's side. I've always known she didn't love me the same way, but when I needed her most, she chose her new family over me. It feels like I've been abandoned by everyone. Now my ex is painting me as the villain, and in just 3 months, he's moved on to my stepsister, getting ready to marry her. This upcoming month is going to be the hardest of my life. I already feel like it's breaking me. In 60 days, everything will change for good. He'll start his new life, and I'll have to figure out how to rebuild mine. But right now, I don't even know where to begin. I'm not hurt by the breakup itself. What really stings is being falsely accused and now having to deal with this whole messy situation. At this point, I'm open to any advice, no matter how wild it might sound. I'm desperate, and I apologize for my unhealthy coping mechanisms. Sometimes, you just reach a breaking point and give in to whatever helps you get through the moment. So, thank you all for putting up with my emotional, drunken rants. It's been a week since I made my first post, and back then, I was freshly heartbroken. It was honestly one of the worst feelings I've ever experienced, but I appreciate all the support and kind words from everyone. The comments about how no one, especially my ex, deserves me really lifted my spirits. You've all made this tough time a little easier to handle.
Here's what's happened since then.
A couple of days after my post, one of my friends reached out, and thank God she did. We decided to do something drastic. We're running away for a month-long vacation. I have a great job that pays well, so money isn't an issue. I know I need time to heal, breathe, and just be somewhere peaceful, away from everything. We chose Belgium as our destination, and for the next 2 weeks, we'll be soaking in the sun and sea, away from anyone who knows us. The pain is still there, but I can feel myself starting to heal. I've already notified my office about my 2-week leave, and they approved it, one of the perks of being the top employee for the past 3 years. As for the wedding, I made it clear in the family group chat that I won't be attending. Before anyone could guilt-trip me or try to change my mind, I left the group chat, silenced all their messages, and told them that I won't tolerate any passive-aggressive behavior. If anyone stands in the way of my decision to focus on my healing, I'm ready to cut ties with them. Honestly, I'm so excited about this trip. It feels like the best decision I've made in a long time. This online community has been a real lifeline for me, and I truly think you're all the coolest people ever. Fast forward to today, it's been 7 days since I last updated, and I'm already in Belgium. My last post was from the flight, and now that I'm here, I have so much to share. First of all, this place is breathtaking. I get why people come here and never want to leave. It's peaceful, beautiful, and honestly, I feel like I could stay here forever and just keep vacationing. I'm already starting to feel like I'm moving on. The friend who joined me on this trip also got me set up with some online therapy, and that's been incredibly helpful. It's given me a lot of clarity and made me realize a lot of things about myself and my situation. Everything is slowly falling into place, and I'm feeling hopeful for the first time in a while. I'll keep you all updated as I continue this journey, but for now, I'm just enjoying the peace and the process of healing. I didn't realize it before, but now it's all becoming clear right in front of me, and honestly, everything feels so much better this way. I've come to understand that none of this was my fault. The lies that were told about me will never change my truth. In fact, I've grown stronger because of it. It seemed impossible at first, but if I can be replaced in 5 months, then I can replace someone who never truly cared about me either. To put it simply, screw my ex, screw my family too. I've made the decision to cut them off after the wedding is done. The most satisfying part of this whole plan is that no one can stop me. I've also become more spiritual and have been connecting with my dad's soul more. I feel his presence guiding me, and it's like it's just me, my father, and God against the world. That's all I need right now. This might sound like a crazy update, but honestly, if I seem like the bad guy here, so be it. Sometimes you have to embrace your inner strength to fight back against the pain and negativity. After focusing on myself for the entire month, I can confidently say that I'm so much better than I was before. I've rediscovered myself, explored new things I enjoy, and I'm truly happier. Now, let's get to the interesting part. While exploring the city, I bumped into an old friend, someone who used to be my best friend in high school. Funny enough, she was also my stepsister's unrequited love for years. She had feelings for him for about 3 to 5 years, but he liked me instead, which is one of the reasons she bullied me back then. Anyway, we ended up reconnecting, went out for drinks, and took a walk on the beach. We caught up on everything happening in our lives, and I shared my sad story with him. He was genuinely sympathetic, and it felt refreshing. He's everything I wish my ex could have been. Looking back, I have no idea why I didn't give him a chance earlier. We talked for hours and ended up spending the night together, and honestly, it was the best night of my life. I've never felt this connected to someone before. Our chemistry was undeniable, and I just knew that the universe had sent him my way at the perfect time. We're not exclusive yet, and we're definitely taking things slow, but I'm excited about where this could go. And don't worry about my other friend feeling left out. Her boyfriend joined us this weekend, so now we both have someone with us. It feels like everything is finally falling into place. We're heading home tomorrow, and the wedding is in 5 days. We'll arrive in 1 day, take some time to rest, and then show up to the wedding. It's crazy how life can turn around, but I'm feeling ready for whatever comes next. I made up my mind to show up at the wedding and show everyone just how much I've healed. It's time for my stepsister to know exactly how I felt through all of this. And no, I'm not manipulating anyone. It was actually his idea for us to attend the wedding together. All I know is that this is going to be the best Friday of my life. So, here's the final update. I did what I had to do, and I wish you all could have been there to witness the drama that unfolded. I arrived at the wedding dressed up and with my boyfriend. Well, we're not official yet, but we introduced each other that way anyway, lol. Everyone assumed I wouldn't show up, thinking I was too ashamed after everything that happened. I'll admit, there was a part of me that felt a bit bad, but I brushed that aside and went straight to my stepsister. She was shocked to see me and almost burst into tears when she saw my boyfriend with me. She started yelling, calling me all sorts of names for bringing the love of her life to her wedding. But I stood my ground and told her, if you can marry my ex, I can at least be with the guy who never liked you in the first place. Then my mom tried to step in, telling me to leave. But I wasn't going anywhere. My ex eventually walked in, looking surprised to see me. My sister, in her anger and desperation, tried to explain the situation to him, but she fumbled with her words. And guess what? She accidentally cornered herself. That's when things got interesting. My ex started questioning her about her past with my boyfriend. And with me throwing in a few sarcastic comments, she finally cracked and admitted the truth. She had paid my ex's best friend to lie to him about me cheating. You should have seen the look on everyone's faces. My ex was absolutely shocked, and the whole room went silent. It turned out that my stepsister had been behind everything all along. It all made sense. The wedding was called off right then and there. And guess who's now trying to worm his way back into my life? Yep, my ex. But poor him. He doesn't stand a chance. There's no way I'm forgiving him or letting any of them back into my life. They've all lost the right to be a part of it. That's pretty much it for now. If anything else happens, I'll update you, but honestly, this whole story feels like something out of a movie or a novel. As unbelievable as it sounds, it's all true, and I've seen enough crazy things in my life to know that stuff like this can actually happen. Kudos to all of you who followed along with me. Here's to a better life ahead because trust me, the ex is beyond embarrassing at this point. Anyway, on to the next chapter of my life. I'm 27, and I recently moved to the country, staying with my brother, who's 40, and his wife for the last 4 months, while I sort out my paperwork and get myself settled. I've been helping out around the house, doing my own laundry and cooking for both myself and my brother, so he has food to take to work. I'm also paying my share of the bills and groceries. I'm really grateful they've let me stay, but there are always little things my brother says that make me feel like I'm not doing enough. For example, he questions why I don't iron their clothes, criticizes the type of sausages I use for meals, and expects me to clean his dishes, even though he never cleans mine. He also doesn't knock before entering the room I'm staying in. To make things worse, I recently found out that my sister-in-law did a cleaning inspection of my room without telling me, which really hurt because it felt like an invasion of my personal space. Now, my sister-in-law is scheduled for knee surgery this week and will be recovering at home for the next 5 months. Since I work from home, it's expected that I'll take on most of the household chores during this time. This all feels overwhelming, and I'm starting to feel like I have no control over my own life. My anxiety is through the roof. I've already found a new place to stay and plan to move out this week, but I haven't told them yet. Am I the bad one for moving out when I know they'll likely expect me to take care of my sister-in-law during her recovery? Update. Thank you to everyone who offered kind words and advice. It really helped me see the situation more clearly. Yesterday, I finally moved my things out while my brother and sister-in-law were away. I waited for my brother outside when he got home so we could talk calmly, and I explained that I was moving out to a new place. I thanked him for letting me stay, and surprisingly, there was no big argument. I think he had a feeling that something like this was coming. I'm relieved there wasn't any drama, and I was able to leave peacefully. Verdict: you're not in the wrong. They were kind to let you stay, and you were equally considerate, contributing positively to their home. However, they made you uncomfortable, and it's understandable that you feel things would only get worse. You absolutely have the right to move out and create a peaceful space for yourself, especially since you work from home and need a comfortable environment. Wow, Opie, I'm really sorry you're being treated that way. You're definitely NTA. You're not their personal cook or cleaner, yet that's how they seem to be treating you, and the fact that they're invading your personal space is completely out of line. Moving out is the best choice for you. If they try to guilt trip you, be honest and let them know how their treatment was affecting your mental health and how important it is for you to have your own space. I hope this helps, and please take care of yourself. Next story. My dad met my former stepmom, Julie, when I was 9. They got married, and she became like a third parent to me. She joined us on family vacations, helped with my homework, came to my games and activities, and was a big part of my life. About a year or 2 ago, we found out my dad cheated and they divorced. I made it clear to my dad that I wasn't going to cut Julie out of my life just because they weren't married anymore. He didn't love that idea and just said, "We'll see." Despite the divorce, Julie and I still talk and meet up occasionally. Meanwhile, my dad's been dating a woman named Lauren for a while, and I met her around Thanksgiving. He's been trying hard to get me to bond with her, but honestly, I don't want to. I find her a bit annoying, and she keeps inviting me to do things like shopping, lunch, or getting our nails done, but I'm just not interested. Last Sunday, right before Mother's Day, we were at a family barbecue, and Lauren was there too. During a conversation, my aunt mentioned Julie and said she hoped she was doing well. I responded that Julie is doing great and mentioned we were meeting for dinner on Thursday because I wanted to give her a Mother's Day gift. My dad chimed in, asking, "A gift for what?" I told him it was for Mother's Day after all. Julie was my stepmom for over 16 years. He responded with, "Well, she's not your stepmom anymore." I ignored him and changed the subject. I spent Mother's Day with my mom, but later that night, my dad called me. He told me he doesn't think I should be in contact with Julie anymore because it hurt Lauren's feelings when she found out I was meeting Julie for dinner and getting her a gift. He also said it was unfair since I haven't put in the effort to get to know Lauren, and I didn't even get her anything for Christmas. Then he added that I should get Lauren something small for Mother's Day. I asked him, "Why? She's not my mom." He said, "I know, but she's my girlfriend, and I'm your dad. You should put in more effort." I told my dad that being a part of my life is something people earn equally. Just because Lauren is his girlfriend doesn't mean I owe her anything. He said I was being stubborn and needed to grow up. But my decision not to get close to Lauren has nothing to do with Julie. It's because before my dad met Julie, his previous girlfriends were honestly pretty strange. One of them acted like we were instant best friends from the moment we met. Another apparently called my mom trying to become her best friend after finding her number at my dad's house, and one kept trying to make me a girly girl, always pushing me to wear dresses. He never stayed with these women for long, usually just a few months, before moving on to the next one. When I was younger, I made an effort to get to know them, but now I don't have the energy or desire to do that anymore. I probably wouldn't feel any different about Lauren even if Julie had never been in the picture. I'm just over it at this point. So, am I the bad one for still talking to Julie and not trying to get to know Lauren? Verdict: your dad divorced Julie, but you didn't. Julie has been an important part of your life for over 16 years, and she's basically a parent to you. For your dad to expect you to just drop such an important person from your life is incredibly selfish. As for Lauren, you have no obligation to bond with her. She's your dad's choice, not yours, and it's entirely your decision whether or not you want to form a relationship with her. Expecting you to give Lauren a Mother's Day gift is a bit odd, too. She's never been a mother figure to you, especially since she came into your dad's life when you were already an adult. You're not wrong to maintain your relationship with Julie and set boundaries with Lauren. When I was growing up, we didn't have a lot of money, but we were still happy. My name is Betty, and I'm the oldest of 3 sisters. After me came Ashley and then Jessica, the youngest in the family. Our dad worked as a van driver, and our mom stayed home to take care of us. Life was not easy, but we always found a way to get by. Then one day, everything changed. I was just 12 years old, but I remember that day like it happened yesterday. There was a knock at the door, and 5 police officers were standing there. Mom's face went pale as they gave her the terrible news. Dad had been in a car accident. His van had crashed, and he didn't make it. Just like that, he was gone. Our lives were turned upside down. That night, after she thought we were asleep, I heard Mom crying in the hallway. She said through her tears, "I need to find a job." It broke my heart. The very next week, she got a job at a local hardware store. It wasn't a big job, she worked as a saleswoman, but it was the only thing she could find so quickly. From that moment on, I knew I had to help. I was only 12, but as the oldest, I took on a lot of new responsibilities. While Mom worked long hours, I learned how to cook simple meals, help my sisters with their homework, and did what I could to keep the house clean and running. We still didn't have much, and the bills kept coming in. By the time I turned 17, it was clear that Mom couldn't do it all by herself. So I got a part-time job at a small cafe in town. I worked after school and on weekends. The pay wasn't great, but every little bit helped. I gave most of what I earned to Mom to help with groceries and bills. One evening, during one of our rare family dinners, Mom looked at us with tired eyes and said, "Girls, I have to be honest. I won't be able to pay for your college. You'll have to find a way on your own." It was hard to hear, but I understood. We all did. That moment made me even more determined. I told myself I would find a way to go to college. I started studying harder than ever. Every free moment I had between work and helping at home, I spent with my nose in a book. I aimed for the best grades because I knew I needed scholarships if I ever wanted a chance. All that hard work wasn't easy, but I kept going. I didn't want to let my family down. I didn't want to give up. And little by little, it started to pay off. When I got the letter in the mail saying I had received a full scholarship to college, I started to cry. But for the first time in a long while, they were happy tears. My mom hugged me so tightly I could barely breathe. She was so proud. It felt like all the hard work and long nights had finally paid off. Things went differently for my sisters. Ashley, who's always been strong and determined, decided to go to college too. She didn't get a scholarship, so she took out student loans. I was proud of her for finishing school, but I knew those loans would follow her for many years. She had a heavy burden to carry. Jessica, the youngest, chose another path. When she turned 19, she went straight to work. College wasn't for her, and she wanted to start earning money right away. We all supported her choice because we knew she had to do what felt right for her. Getting the scholarship was a huge step, but it didn't solve everything. I quickly found out that college still came with a lot of extra costs, like books, food, rent, and clothes. I moved into a small apartment off campus with two other girls, Linda and Jennifer, so we could share the rent. We each had our own corner of the tiny space and somehow made it work. You work so much and your grades are still amazing. How do you do it? Linda would ask me as I rushed out the door for my shift at the campus coffee shop. The truth was I didn't get much sleep. Between classes, studying, and working, there was barely time to rest. But I didn't have a choice. I had to pay my share of the rent, and I still wanted to help my family back home. Every week during phone calls with Mom, I'd say, "I'm sending some money for the bills." She'd always tell me, "Betty, honey, you should keep it for yourself." But I could hear the relief in her voice. Even a small amount helped, and I couldn't let them go without. Sometimes I'd only have enough left for cheap noodles and coffee, but it was worth it. After graduation, things finally started to get better. I got a job at a marketing company. That's where I met David. At first, he was just the guy who always happened to be in the break room at the same time I was getting coffee. But over time, we grew close. Even though I had a good job and was building a life with David, I never stopped helping my family. Whenever Ashley or Jessica called saying they were in trouble, I sent what I could, usually $400 or $600. Ashley once needed money to fix her car. Jessica had medical bills she didn't expect. Mom's old house always seemed to need repairs. "You're an angel, Betty," Ashley would say. "I'll pay you back as soon as I can." But I didn't care about getting paid back. Helping them meant everything to me. "I will," I said, even though we both knew Ashley would probably never pay me back. But I didn't care. I was finally in a place where I could help, and it made me feel good. On my 27th birthday, David asked me to marry him. It was the happiest moment of my life. Everything felt just right. We had a small wedding, nothing big or fancy, but it was perfect for us. Then something amazing happened. One day, David called me, sounding really excited. "Babe, you need to see this apartment," he said. "The owner needs to sell fast, and my parents offered to help with the down payment." It sounded almost too good to be true. It was a one-bedroom apartment in the city, and the price was way lower than usual. The owner was moving to another country and needed to sell it quickly. With help from David's parents, we were able to buy it. I couldn't wait to tell my family. I thought they'd be excited for us. But I was wrong. At our next family dinner, I shared the news. Instead of being happy, Ashley just frowned and pushed her food around her plate. "Must be nice," she said. "Some people just get everything handed to them." Then Jessica added, "Yeah, we're still renting places and working just as hard." What hurt the most was my mom's reaction. Instead of sticking up for me, she nodded and said, "The girls do have a point, Betty. They could use their own places too." I couldn't believe it. After all the years I spent helping them, sending money, working hard, sacrificing sleep and fun, they didn't seem to remember any of it. They didn't see the hours I worked, the scholarships I earned, or the struggle behind every step. They only saw what they didn't have. Ever since college, I had a little tradition. Around the holidays, I would buy a lottery ticket. I started doing it my first year of college when I was really broke. I dreamed of being able to buy real gifts for my family instead of the little handmade ones I gave them. This Christmas, I did the same thing. I stopped at the usual store, bought a ticket, and tossed it in my purse. I didn't check the numbers until 5 days after the draw. I was sitting at the kitchen table, drinking coffee and looking at the lottery website on my phone. Then I saw the winning numbers. I checked once, twice, 4 times. My hand started to shake so much, I nearly spilled my coffee. "David," I yelled. "Come here." He ran from the bedroom, still in his pajamas. "What's wrong? Are you okay?" I couldn't talk. I just gave him my phone and the ticket. He looked back and forth between them, his eyes getting bigger each time. "Oh my, Betty," he whispered. "This is $500,000. We sat there in silence, shocked. Finally, David smiled and said, "We should celebrate. Should we call your family? Your mom would." "No," I said quickly, louder than I meant to. I felt tears building up in my eyes. "We can't tell them," I said. "If they find out, they'll want all the money. They already seem upset that we have our own apartment. Can you imagine how they'd react to this?" I felt a little guilty when I thought about Ashley still trying to pay off her student loans. For a moment, I thought maybe I should help her with that. But then I remembered her hurtful words about our apartment and how Mom agreed with her.
No.
If I gave them anything, it wouldn't stop there. They'd keep asking for more until the money was gone. David gently brought me back from my thoughts. "What do you want to do with the money?" he asked. I wiped my eyes and took a deep breath. "I want to buy a house," I said. "A real house outside the city. Somewhere quiet, with a yard for kids to play in someday." I looked at him and held his hand tightly. "But you have to promise me something. Don't tell anyone about the money. Not your parents. Not your friends. And especially not my family." He nodded. "They won't hear it from me." "But what do we tell them about the house?" he asked. "We'll make something up," I said. "We'll say we got a mortgage or your parents helped. Anything. Just not the truth." I knew it sounded bad hiding this from my family, but I didn't know what else to do. Still, I knew I couldn't hide the house from them forever. We lived in the same city, and they'd find out soon enough. I wanted to tell them myself, in my own way. So I invited everyone over for dinner. After dessert, I tried to sound calm and said, "We bought a house. It's a nice place out in the countryside, about 50 minutes from here." The room went silent. Mom was the first to speak. "How could you afford a house?" I stuck to the story David and I had planned. "We got a mortgage, and David's parents helped with the down payment. We were lucky to find a great deal." "Must be nice having in-laws with money," Ashley mumbled, but I ignored her. I smiled and added, "I wanted to tell you all that you're welcome to use the house anytime. At least until we move in full-time. It's perfect for weekend trips." Suddenly, everything changed. Now, they wanted to hear more. They asked about the house, the yard, how many bedrooms it had. Jessica was already making plans to visit with her boyfriend. Soon, almost every weekend, someone from the family was using the house. Jessica and her boyfriend came often. Then one day, Jessica called me. "Betty," she said, "would it be okay if we spent our honeymoon at the house? We're trying to save money, and it would be perfect." How could I say no? Of course, I couldn't say no to my little sister when she asked to spend her honeymoon at the house. So after her small wedding, she and her new husband stayed there for a week. It made me happy to see them enjoying the place, even if they didn't know how we really got it. But the problem started slowly. At first, it was small things, like dishes left in the sink or wet towels on the bathroom floor. Nothing big, but still annoying. Then, the requests for the house keys started coming more often. Sometimes they'd ask with very little notice. "Hey, can we get the keys for tonight? Logan's parents are in town," Ashley would text, expecting a quick answer. I always said yes. It was easier than dealing with the guilt they would throw at me if I said no. David, my husband, was starting to get annoyed. But I told him not to worry. Once we moved into the house full-time, things would be different. Then one Sunday changed everything. I decided to drive out to the house to clean and check on things. As I pulled into the driveway, I saw a car I knew, Ashley's blue sedan. That was strange. She hadn't asked for the keys this week. I walked up to the front door and unlocked it with my key. I could hear the TV from the living room. Then I heard Ashley laughing, along with her husband's voice. They both looked surprised when they saw me. "Oh, hey Betty," Ashley said, trying to sound relaxed. "We just needed a break for the day." "How did you get in?" I asked, even though I already had a bad feeling. Ashley shrugged. "I had copies of the keys made a while ago. It was just easier than bothering you every time we wanted to come." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. "You made copies of my keys without asking me?" I said quietly. "I need those copies now." She sighed and started digging in her purse.
"Fine.
"Here. But I don't get why you're being so serious. It's not like we broke anything." I took the keys from her, trying to stay calm. It wasn't about damage.
It was about trust.
About respect. About setting limits. But when I looked at her face, I could tell she didn't understand. A year passed after that, and I had some big news. I was pregnant. David and I were so excited. We decided to tell everyone at our monthly family dinner. I imagined smiling faces, hugs, and maybe even happy tears. But what actually happened was nothing like that. I stood up after dinner, holding David's hand for support. "We have some exciting news," I said with a smile. "We're having a baby." There was a short silence. Then Mom gave a small smile. "That's wonderful, dear." But before anyone else could say something, Jessica jumped in. "Wait, does this mean you're moving into the house for good?" "Yes," I said, my smile fading just a little. "We think it's best for the baby to grow up there. There's fresh air and more space." Jessica frowned. "But where are we supposed to go on weekends now? That house is our getaway spot." I stared at her, shocked. Had she even heard what I just said? I was having a baby, her future niece or nephew, and all she cared about was losing her free weekend house. The rest of the dinner was uncomfortable. No one asked me about the baby when I was due or how I felt. Instead, they whispered about the house and how plans would need to change. A few weeks later, we moved into the house. My sisters still came to visit sometimes, but things weren't the same. I made the visits shorter and told them they couldn't stay overnight anymore. This was our home now, not their weekend getaway. Then came the night that changed everything. Ashley and her husband came over for dinner. David and I had set up a nice meal on the back patio. After we ate, the men sat outside sharing a bottle of cognac while Ashley and I cleaned up inside. I was in the kitchen when I heard David's voice, a little too loud from the drink. His words made my heart stop. "You know, we really lucked out with that lottery win, $500,000, can you believe it?" The sound of glass breaking made me run outside. Ashley stood there, a shattered wine glass at her feet, staring at me with wide eyes. "Lottery win?" she said, her voice shaking. "You won the lottery?" David's face turned white as he realized what he had said. I tried to speak, but Ashley cut me off. "You liar," she yelled. "All this time you had money? A beautiful house while the rest of us are struggling to pay rent." "Ashley, please," I began, but she didn't want to listen. "You should have shared it with us," she shouted. "We're your sisters. And you've been living in comfort while I'm still paying off my student loans." "It was my ticket," I said, trying to stay calm. "My money." "Your money?" she laughed, but it wasn't a happy laugh. It was bitter and angry. "You know what you should do? Sell that apartment in the city and split the money with me and Jessica. It's the least you could do after keeping the secret for so long." "I'm not selling anything," I said firmly. I looked at Ashley and said firmly, "I'm sorry you're upset, but this money was mine. I had the right to choose how to spend it." Her face twisted with anger. "We'll see about that," she snapped. "I'll take you to court. You'll have to give us what we deserve. You think you can just keep all this for yourself? A judge will decide." She grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door. Her husband followed behind, looking uncomfortable. At the door, she turned back and said, "You're going to regret this. You're going to regret being so selfish." I thought things couldn't get worse after that night. I was wrong. The next morning, my phone started ringing at 8 a.m. It was Mom. "How could you do this to us?" she yelled. Her voice was full of anger. "Ashley told me everything. Your own family, Betty. We've been struggling for years while you've been sitting on a fortune." "Mom, please just listen." I tried to explain, but she cut me off. "No, you listen to me. After everything I've done for you, everything I gave up, you owe us." The phone calls didn't stop. If I didn't answer, they left angry voicemails. When I blocked their numbers, they started sending emails. Then came the text messages day and night. Guilt trips.
Blame. Threats.
"Share the money or we'll take you to court," Ashley wrote in one message. I thought they were just trying to scare me. I didn't think they'd actually go through with it. But then one day, the papers arrived. David opened the envelope and read it out loud, his face darkening with every word. "Mrs. Betty Wells is hereby notified of a civil action filed against her." It was real. My own mother was suing me for $400,000. She claimed that's how much it had cost to raise me for 20 years. Her lawyer had written it all down: food, clothes, school supplies, doctor visits, even the cost of the bedroom I had slept in. They added up every little thing. We demand compensation for the defendant's upbringing and care from birth to age 19, the paper said. Both my sisters had joined the lawsuit. They gave written statements saying how much Mom had given up for us. They said she had made big sacrifices to raise us. But they left out how I had helped, how I sent money home for years to make things easier for Mom. The stress started to break me down. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't eat. I was constantly worried. Then one morning, I woke up in pain. The cramping was sharp and deep, unlike anything I had felt before. Something's wrong, I whispered to David. The baby. The next few hours were a blur: emergency rooms, doctors, and fear. The doctors told me what I feared most. The stress had put my pregnancy at high risk. I was admitted to the hospital right away. If you don't lower your stress, you could lose the baby, the doctor said seriously. I spent the next 3 weeks in the hospital on bed rest. The plain white walls of my hospital room became a peaceful place, far away from all the drama my family had caused. One day, David brought me my phone, but I asked him to take it back. Just seeing all the messages made my heart race and my blood pressure rise. The court case went on for months. David and I watched our savings slowly disappear. We spent $7,000 on legal fees, and the case still wasn't over. I had to sit through long meetings where my mother talked about every single thing she ever spent on me. My sisters spoke too, telling the court about Mom's sacrifices. They made me sound like an ungrateful daughter who got lucky and then turned her back on her family. They didn't mention all the money I had sent home over the years.
Or the bills I helped pay.
They left all that out. Finally, after what felt like forever, the judge gave his decision. The court finds in favor of the defendant, he said. Parents cannot ask for money for raising their own children. Also, lottery winnings belong only to the person who bought the ticket. Case dismissed. I had won, but it didn't feel like a real victory. My sisters weren't done. Since they couldn't win in court, they went online to ruin my name. They started posting things on social media, making me look like the bad guy. Be careful of family members who pretend to care but only care about themselves, Ashley wrote, tagging people we both knew. Jessica was even more direct. Some people forget their roots when they get money. They leave behind the family that raised them. Karma is coming. Their posts were shared with cousins, old friends, and people in our town. Even classmates I hadn't spoken to in years were messaging me, asking what was happening. The gossip spread through our small community like wildfire. One evening, I was sitting in the living room, reading yet another cruel post. David walked in, saw my face, and gently took the phone from my hands. That's enough, he said firmly. This has to stop. We need to move. Far away. To another state, somewhere they can't reach us. He sat down beside me. I checked with my company. I can transfer to any office I want. And you work from home, so you can work from anywhere. But what about the house? The apartment? I asked, feeling unsure. We'll sell both, he said softly. We'll start fresh. Just the two of us and the baby. No more drama. No more stress. He held my hands in his. Think about it. A new beginning. And he was right. Once my doctor said it was safe for me to travel, David and I started getting ready. We put both the house and the apartment up for sale. The house sold quickly. Turns out, a lot of people dream about living in the countryside. The apartment took a little longer, but we eventually found someone to buy it. We packed up our lives into boxes. We carefully chose what to keep and what to leave behind. Each box felt like a small step toward freedom and peace. We didn't tell anyone where we were going, not my sisters, not my mom, not even our close friends at first. We even hired movers who wouldn't know our final address until the day they delivered everything. It might have seemed a little extreme, but after everything my family had done, we didn't want to take any chances. We couldn't risk being followed. About a month after we settled into our new home, my phone rang. I saw Aunt Linda's name on the screen, and for once, I didn't feel the usual stress. Aunt Linda had always been different from the rest of the family, kind, calm, and fair. Hey, sweetie, she said in her warm voice. How are you settling in? We talked for a few minutes about the new house and the baby. Then her voice turned serious. I should tell you something, she said. Ashley came by yesterday. She was asking about you. Wanted to know where you moved to. My heart skipped a beat. What did you tell her? I asked, nervous. Nothing, Aunt Linda replied. I told her I didn't know, and that's true. You haven't told me your new address either. She paused. But she asked me to let her know if I ever find out. She seemed very determined. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. Thank you, Aunt Linda. Thank you for not telling her anything. Oh, honey, I never would, she said gently. I've seen everything that's happened. What they did to you, it wasn't right. After we hung up, I walked into the room that would soon be the baby's nursery. David and I had been working on it every weekend, painting the walls a soft yellow, putting together the baby furniture, and laying down a fluffy carpet. My favorite spot was the rocking chair by the window. I sat down and looked around the half-finished room. My mind wandered to Ashley and her student loans. For a long time, I felt guilty. I kept thinking I should have helped her, that I should have shared my lottery money. But sitting there, in that quiet, cozy room, I realized something. That guilt was gone. Ashley had made her own choices. I whispered into the quiet room. You're the one who started all of this. You're the one who turned Mom against me. You chose money instead of our relationship. Later, David found me sitting there, sketching ideas for the shelves we wanted to build. Look what I found, he said, holding up a small stuffed elephant. Perfect for the safari theme we talked about. I smiled and moved over, so he could sit on the arm of the rocking chair. We had been so happy in our new life. No more angry phone calls. No more scary messages. No more stress. Just the two of us, getting ready for our baby, turning this house into a home. I looked around the room. The soft light from the evening sun came through the curtains we had picked out together. Tiny baby clothes already hung neatly in the closet. The crib stood half-built, waiting for our baby to arrive. This is what matters now, I said softly. This room, this house, our family, the one we're building, not the one I left behind. Right then, the baby kicked, as if agreeing with me, and I laughed. In some ways, my world had become smaller. No more big family dinners. No more hard-to-handle relationships. But in other ways, my world had grown so much bigger, full of new hope and new beginnings. It was finally peaceful, and I knew I had made the right choice. My name is Margaret, and I just turned 14 when my life suddenly changed. Let me tell you about my family. On the outside, we looked like a normal family. My dad worked hard, and my mom stayed at home. I had a little sister named Ashley, and she was 4 to 9 years younger than me. Dad was the manager of a big store that belonged to my mom's mom, my grandmother. Grandma was a strong and busy woman. She started with some laundromats and later began making soaps and cleaning products. When she retired, she offered the business to my mom, but Mom didn't want it. So Dad took over instead. That's when things started to go wrong. I remember the day everything changed. I was in my room trying to do homework when I heard my mom yelling at Dad downstairs. You're nothing but a loser, Dennis. This is my house and my family's business. You should be thankful I let you run it. After that, things just got worse. Mom and Dad stopped talking unless they were fighting. I tried to keep Ashley busy so she wouldn't notice, but even she knew something was wrong. Then one day, everything changed for good. I came home from school and saw Dad in the living room with a suitcase.
Dad.
I said, my voice shaking. What's going on? He came over and gave me a tight hug. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I can't stay here anymore. It's not good for anyone. I felt like I couldn't breathe. But what about Ashley? What about me? He pulled back and looked at me with watery eyes. I love you both so much. Never forget that. But sometimes love isn't enough. He kissed my forehead and then went to Ashley. She was standing there looking confused. He knelt down and hugged her. Be good for your big sister, okay, pumpkin? Then he left. The door shut behind him, and it felt like everything went quiet. Mom came home an hour later. When I told Mom that Dad had left, she didn't seem surprised. She just nodded like she already knew it was coming. Good riddance, she muttered. Mom,
I said.
I couldn't believe what I was hearing. How can you say that? She turned to me, her face cold. Your father cheated on me, Margaret. More than once. I couldn't take it anymore. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard Mom talking on the phone in her room. She was laughing and sounded happier than she had in a long time. I wondered who she was talking to, but I was too tired to care. Just when I thought things couldn't get more confusing, Mom dropped another surprise on us. One morning at breakfast, she said, I have some news. I'm getting married. I almost choked on my cereal.
What?
Mom, Dad's only been gone 3 months. She waved her hand like it didn't matter. Sometimes true love shows up when you don't expect it, Margaret. You'll understand one day. A week later, Randy moved in. He was okay, I guess, tall and good-looking in that way people call nice. But something about him didn't sit right with me from the start. He tried with Ashley. He played games with her and helped her with homework. But with me, it was like I didn't exist. Things were changing at the company, too. After Dad left, Mom took over and brought Randy to work with her. They seemed like a strong team, always whispering about business plans. I tried to focus on school, friends, and normal teenage stuff. But I couldn't shake the feeling that I was fading away in my own home. Then it all came crashing down. One evening, Mom said, We're moving. It's a great chance to grow the business. I was still trying to process that when she added, Randy and I have talked. We think it's best if you stay here. I couldn't believe it. Stay here? Without you? I asked, shocked. Mom spoke quickly, like she was trying to explain everything at once. It's just the new house won't have much space. And you're almost done with school. It wouldn't make sense to switch schools now, right before your exams. It felt like I got punched in the stomach. So, where am I supposed to live? On the street? Don't be so dramatic, Margaret, Mom said sharply. You'll stay with your grandmother. She's already said yes. I stormed off to my room and slammed the door. I threw myself onto the bed, tears of anger and sadness running down my face. When did I become a problem to my own mom? I thought. The next few weeks passed in a blur. Boxes everywhere.
Goodbyes.
Most of the tears were Ashley's. She didn't want to leave her friends. I helped her pack and tried to stay strong for her. Will you come visit us, Lizzie? She asked, her big brown eyes full of tears. I hugged her tight. Of course I will, Squirt. You're stuck with me. The day they left, I stood on the porch with Grandma. We watched the moving van drive off. Mom gave me a quick hug. Randy just nodded. And then they were gone, taking Ashley with them. Living with Grandma wasn't as bad as I'd feared. She was actually kind of cool. She gave me space when I needed it and was always there with a cup of tea when I wanted to talk. But it still didn't feel like home. My 15th birthday came faster than I thought. That morning, I woke up feeling strange. I should have felt excited, but instead, I felt empty. Mom called, of course. Happy birthday, sweetie, she said in a super cheerful voice. Sorry we can't be there. Work is just crazy right now. We'll celebrate next month, okay? I knew we wouldn't. They hadn't visited once since they moved. Sure, Mom. Sounds great. Grandma must have noticed I wasn't feeling great because she went all out. She let me invite some friends, ordered my favorite food, and even baked me a cake. For a few hours, I almost felt happy. The next morning, I almost forgot about everything that had been going on until Grandma called me into her home office. She had that serious look on her face that made my stomach twist. Sit down, Margaret, she said, pointing to the chair in front of her desk. We need to talk. Oh no, I thought. She's going to kick me out. Where will I go? But then she smiled, reached into her desk drawer, and pulled out a small folder. Happy birthday, sweetheart. Open it. I opened it and almost dropped it when I saw what was inside. Grandma, is this what I think it is? She nodded, her eyes shining. The company is yours now, Margaret. I believe in you. You're smart, and I know you'll take good care of the business. But Mom and Randy are running it now, I said. Grandma's face turned serious. They're running a branch. But the main company, the heart of it all, that's yours now. I just sat there, stunned. Me, barely 15, now the owner of a multi-million-dollar company. It felt unreal, like a dream or maybe a nightmare. I don't know what to say, I whispered. Grandma reached across the desk and squeezed my hand. You don't have to say anything. Just promise me you'll give it your best. I nodded slowly, still in shock. I will. I promise. She leaned back in her chair, looking pleased.
Good.
Now I have one more piece of advice, and I need you to really listen. I leaned in, hanging on her every word. Call your father. There's more to that story than you know.
Talk to him.
Maybe even take him on as a consultant. But most of all, just hear him out. It took me a whole week to build up the courage to call Dad. We agreed to meet at a small cafe downtown. When I saw him, my heart tightened. He looked older, tired, but when he saw me, his eyes lit up. There was a quiet moment between us. Then all at once I started talking. I told him everything about the divorce, Mom's new marriage, the move, and Grandma's gift. He listened quietly, his face full of mixed emotions. When I finished, he took a deep breath. Lizzie, there's something you should know about the divorce. Then he told me everything. How Mom had never respected him. How she always criticized him and made him feel useless. How after one really bad fight, he got drunk and made the biggest mistake of his life. I cheated on her, he said quietly, his voice full of guilt. Just once. I regretted it right away, Dad said. But your mother used it against me. She threatened to take everything. She said I had to leave, give her all the property, and give up both of you. She even asked for money from me after the divorce. I just sat there, shocked. This didn't sound like the mom I thought I knew. Why didn't you fight back? I asked. Dad looked at me, his eyes full of sadness, but also love. Because of you and Ashley. I didn't want you two caught in a big, ugly court fight. I thought staying quiet would make it easier for everyone. As we talked, it felt like a heavy weight was being lifted off my chest. For the first time in a long while, I felt like I had my dad back. Before we said goodbye, I took a deep breath and asked, Dad, how would you feel about helping me with the company? As a consultant. The big smile on his face said it all. The next few months flew by. I was buried in studying, exams, and late-night cramming. Before I knew it, I was standing on stage at my high school graduation, holding my diploma. Grandma was in the crowd, smiling proudly. Mom and Randy weren't there, not that I expected them to be. When summer came, I threw myself into college applications. Grandma cheered me on the whole time, and Dad supported me from afar. I aimed high. Then the letters started coming in. I was shocked by how many schools accepted me. But the biggest surprise came when I opened the financial aid letter for my top choice school. A full ride? I whispered, staring at the paper in disbelief. Grandma jumped up and hugged me tight. I knew you could do it, kiddo. All those late nights and hard work paid off. I chose to major in business management. It felt like the right choice since I now had a company to run. The whole thing still felt a little unreal, but I was determined to make Grandma proud. To celebrate, Grandma insisted on a small party, just the two of us. We ordered fancy takeout and drank sparkling cider, no champagne. Grandma made sure of that, even though I was legally an adult now. We were halfway through dinner when the doorbell rang. Grandma looked confused. She clearly wasn't expecting anyone. I'll get it, I said, putting down my fork. I opened the door, and my stomach sank. Standing there, looking annoyed and impatient, were Mom and Randy. Before I could say anything, they pushed past me into the house. Mom didn't waste time with greetings. Mother, she said sharply, we need to talk about the company.
Now.
I stood there, shocked, as Mom started yelling.
She didn't even look at me.
She didn't ask about my graduation or college. It was like I didn't exist. Why can't we access the main accounts? She demanded. And why are you blocking money from being sent to our part of the business? Grandma's eyes narrowed. Because it's not your choice anymore, Emma, she said. The company belongs to Margaret now. She's the one in charge of its future and the money. The room went completely quiet. You could feel the tension in the air. After Grandma said that, I saw so many emotions flash across Mom's face. First surprise, then anger, and finally something colder, like she was planning something. Suddenly, her whole attitude changed. "Margaret, sweetheart," she said, with a fake soft voice. "I've missed you so much. Why don't you come live with us?" I blinked, confused by how quickly she'd changed. She stepped closer and reached out like she was going to touch my arm. I stepped back without thinking. "We've settled in really well in the new city," she continued. "We have a lovely house and a room just for you. We can get you a new desk and computer for school and work." "No, Mom," I said, keeping my voice calm. "I'm happy here. I have my friends, my school, and Grandma needs me." Her smile faded for just a second, but then she kept pushing. "Well, if that's the problem, we could just move back here," she said. "We could live in our old house again, just like before. Wouldn't that be nice?" I shook my head. "It's not about the house, Mom. It's about everything." I saw her getting angry. She was trying to hide it, but I could tell. Before she could say anything else, I finally asked the question I'd been holding inside for months. "Mom, why did you really divorce Dad?" She froze, caught off guard. "Well, your father, he cheated on me. Many times. I couldn't take it anymore. He left us for another woman. He didn't even pay alimony." "That's not true," I said firmly. "Dad told me everything. It happened once, and only after you treated him badly for years. He didn't leave us, you made him leave. And he has been paying alimony." Mom's face twisted with rage. "How dare you? You ungrateful little brat. You have no right to question me or interfere in my life. Everything here is mine. I decide who stays and who goes." Grandma, who had been quietly watching the whole time, finally stepped in. Her voice was calm but strong, stronger than I'd ever heard before. "That's enough, Emma," she said. "You've clearly forgotten a few important things. This house, the company, they're mine, not yours. I gave the company to Margaret because I trust her judgment far more than I trust yours right now. I think it's time for you to leave." I stood there, feeling all kinds of emotions as Grandma firmly walked Mom and Randy out of the house. When the door closed behind them with a sharp click, it felt final. As I stood beside Grandma, a strange mix of sadness and relief came over me. I had lost something, the last bit of hope I had about my mom, but I had gained something too, clarity about my future and the comfort of knowing I wasn't facing it alone. "What now?" I asked, my voice muffled against Grandma's shoulder. She pulled back and gave me a soft smile.
Now?
"Now we get back to celebrating your college acceptance. And tomorrow, we start planning for your future. Your real future. Not the one your mother tried to force on you." The morning after that awful scene with Mom and Randy, I woke up to voices downstairs. Curious, I quietly crept down and peeked into the living room. To my surprise, I saw Dad sitting on the couch, talking with Grandma. When I sat down with them, Grandma turned to me and explained why she had asked him to come over. "I've been thinking about Ashley," she said. "And your mother, well, I don't think she's in the best place to take care of her right now. I've suggested that your father try to get custody." Hope flared up in my chest. "Really? Dad, are you going to do it?" He ran a hand through his hair. He looked nervous but determined.
"Yeah," he said.
"I am. It's not going to be easy, but Ashley deserves better than what she's getting." I couldn't help it. I threw my arms around him.
"Thank you, Dad."
As we pulled apart, Grandma cleared her throat.
"There's more," she said.
"I hired a private investigator to look into your mother and Randy's activities." The next few weeks passed in a blur. I started my college classes and threw myself into studying like never before. Dad came by often, and we worked on rebuilding our relationship. It felt good to have him back in my life. Then, about 4 weeks after that talk, Grandma called us both into the living room. Her face was serious. The investigator's report came in, she said without any build-up. "And it's worse than we thought." She laid out the findings, and each one felt like a punch in the stomach. Mom had been cheating on Dad for years, long before the divorce. Her relationship with Randy had started while she was still married. There were hotel records, receipts for expensive gifts, all clear proof. But that wasn't the worst part. Randy is a con man, Grandma said, her voice cold and firm. He's done this before. He finds wealthy women, charms them, convinces them to move money around, and then disappears with it. I felt sick. So, when they wanted to move the company's money, I said. Grandma nodded.
Exactly.
Randy was planning to steal it and disappear. We all sat in silence, each of us lost in thought. Finally, Grandma spoke. We need to tell your mother the truth. Face to face. The meeting was set for the next day. Mom showed up at Grandma's house, looking annoyed and impatient. Her eyes widened when she saw Dad sitting there too. What followed was one of the hardest conversations I've ever experienced. Grandma laid everything out, proof of the affair, Randy's criminal past, and how he planned to steal from the company. I watched Mom's face closely, hoping she'd show guilt or regret. But all I saw was denial. This is ridiculous, she said, her voice shaking. Randy loves me. He would never do something like that. You're all just jealous because I'm happy. Dad tried to talk to her calmly. Emma, please. Look at the facts. Think about Ashley. Is this really the kind of man you want around our daughter? But Mom wouldn't listen. She stood up, her face red with anger. I don't have to hear this. Randy is a good man. I trust him completely. You're just trying to ruin everything. And with that, she stormed out, slamming the door behind her. We sat there in silence again. But this time, I understood something important. This wasn't the end. It was only the beginning of a long, difficult fight. But as I looked at Dad and Grandma, I knew I wasn't going to face it alone. The next few months were full of legal battles and emotional stress. With Grandma's help and her strong lawyer, Dad filed for custody of Ashley. I tried to focus on school, but it was hard not to get pulled into everything that was happening. When the day of the custody hearing came, I insisted on going. I needed to be there. It was tough. Mom's lawyer tried to make Dad look like a bad parent who had abandoned us. But our lawyer came prepared. He showed proof that Dad had always paid alimony, tried to stay in contact with us, and had a safe, stable home. Then came the biggest shock, the report from the private investigator. It showed Randy's history of scamming women and his plan to steal from the company. I watched Mom's face as it all came out. First, she looked shocked, then angry, then lost. For a second, I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. When the judge finally made his decision, he gave full custody of Ashley to Dad. I felt a wave of relief. Ashley would be safe. But I also felt a deep sadness that things had come to this. As we left the courthouse, Ashley in Dad's arms, Mom walked up to us. This isn't over, she said. She glared at us, her eyes full of anger. This isn't over, she hissed. Grandma stepped between us. Yes, Emma. It is. Go home. Things kept getting worse for Mom after that. The judge ordered her to pay child support to Dad for Ashley. That clearly shocked her. She had always expected to receive money, not have to pay it. I threw myself into my college work and learning more about the company. I tried to stay out of the drama, but I couldn't help feeling a little satisfied when I heard what happened next. Randy left her. He ran off with another woman, and with a big chunk of Mom's personal savings. One cool autumn evening, Dad called me. I could hear the tension in his voice. Your mother showed up at my place today, he said. She wanted to get back together. Said she made a mistake and wanted us to be a family again. My heart tightened. A small part of me, a childlike part, wanted him to say yes, to make everything the way it used to be. But deep down, I knew better. We all did. I told her no, Dad said firmly. I told her that ship sailed a long time ago, and I won't put you or Ashley through that again. I let out a breath I didn't even realize I was holding. Good, I said, surprised by how strong my voice sounded. You deserve better, Dad. We all do. There was a pause, and then Dad spoke again, this time with a smile in his voice. When did you get so wise, Lizzie? I laughed, feeling lighter than I had in months. I learned from the best. After I hung up, I looked around my room at Grandma's house. My textbooks were open on the desk next to reports from the company. Photos of me, Dad, and Ashley were pinned to the bulletin board, smiling back at me. This wasn't the life I had imagined a year ago. It wasn't perfect. There were still problems to solve and things to learn. But it was real. And it was mine. I thought about Mom, now alone, after all the lies and manipulation. A part of me felt sorry for her. But more than anything, I felt like things had finally turned out the way they should. She had made her choices. Now she had to live with them. As for me, I had a loving family, a company to lead, and a future full of new possibilities. It wasn't the path I expected, but it was the start of something truly mine. I realized something important. Time moves fast when you're balancing college and running a big company. Before I knew it, I was already halfway through my degree, buried in textbooks and business reports. Weekdays were a blur of classes, studying, and late nights. But weekends? Weekends were special. Every Wednesday, I'd pack a bag and head to Dad's house. The moment I walked in, Ashley would run at me full speed, shouting, "Lizzie," and throw her arms around me. At 10, she was all long legs and endless energy. Dad would usually come out of the kitchen, wearing an apron and smiling. Just in time for dinner, he'd say. Those weekends became my favorite part of the week. We'd eat together while Ashley talked nonstop about school. After she went to bed, Dad and I would stay up late, going over business plans and talking about the company. On Mondays, we'd go to Grandma's. She always cooked a big meal, roast chicken, apple pie, and the whole house smelled amazing. After lunch, we'd sit on the porch, just talking. "I always knew you had it in you, Margaret," Grandma would say, gently squeezing my hand. As graduation got closer, I felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. Dad had kept his promise. He was doing a great job running the company while slowly teaching me everything I needed to know. One evening, he said, "I'm ready to hand it over to you whenever you're ready." I hugged him tightly.
Thank you, Dad.
For everything. Life still had its ups and downs. There were big decisions ahead and a company to run. But when I looked at Dad, Ashley, and Grandma, I felt strong. I knew that with them by my side, I could handle whatever came next. My name is Julie. I met Aaron right after I finished college. He won me over with his charm and drive. Before I knew it, we were married and living in the apartment he had bought before the wedding. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours, and I loved it. Our daughter, Lauren, was born not long after. She was perfect, with Aaron's blue eyes and my curly hair. I thought we had everything, a loving family, a cozy home, and bright futures ahead of us. I got a job as a secretary at a small company that was starting to grow. The pay wasn't great, but I liked the work and got along well with my coworkers. Aaron was climbing the ladder at his construction firm. He'd come home with exciting stories about big projects and deals. I was proud of him, even though his long hours meant I was often alone with Lauren. But over time, Aaron started to change. He'd come home late and ask me suspicious questions, like who had called or why I was dressed up. At first, I laughed it off, but his jealousy got worse. One night, after he questioned me about a work event, I had enough. "Do you think I'm cheating?" "With who, Aaron?" "The mailman," I said. He didn't even smile. "Don't play dumb, Julie. I see how men look at you. And your boss." "Aaron, my boss is married with 4 kids. I interrupted. "For God's sake, I'm your wife. I love you." But he didn't listen. The fights kept happening, and they were tearing us apart. I was always faithful and had never given him a reason not to trust me. But Aaron's jealousy poisoned everything. Through it all, Lauren stayed innocent. At 11 years old, her world was all about school, friends, and her iPad. I tried to protect her from our arguments, but kids are more aware than we realize. The irony wasn't lost on me. Aaron was the one who was always late or away on business trips. If anyone had a reason to be suspicious, it was me. But I trusted him. I believed in our vows and our love. Why couldn't Aaron do the same? One night, after a terrible argument, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, unable to sleep. Aaron was snoring softly beside me, but I felt so far away from him. How did we get here? When did love turn into suspicion and trust into constant accusations? I thought about leaving, taking Lauren, and starting over. But where would we go? How could I take care of her on a secretary's salary? And, despite everything, I still loved Aaron. I loved the man he used to be and hoped he could be that man again. Just when I thought things couldn't get harder, life threw me another challenge. My mom, who was always my rock, had a stroke. It came out of nowhere and left us all in shock. Mom had always been healthy and active. After my dad passed away, she kept herself busy with gardening and book clubs, living life to the fullest. She had a beautiful house in a fancy neighborhood, thanks to Dad's life insurance and smart investments. I used to joke that she lived like a retired movie star. But everything changed on a Saturday morning. I got the call at work. Mom couldn't speak or move her left side. I rushed to the hospital, my heart pounding. The next few weeks were a blur of hospitals, doctors, and scary medical terms. I searched everywhere for someone who could tell me she'd recover, but the news was grim. The stroke left her bedridden and needing care 24/7. I felt overwhelmed. How could I take care of Mom, manage my job, look after Lauren, and deal with Aaron's jealousy all at once? It felt like I was drowning. Then, out of nowhere, Aaron suggested something. "We should move into your mom's house," he said one night during dinner. I almost choked on my pasta.
What?
I asked, shocked. "Think about it," he said, his eyes lighting up. "It's a great house in a good neighborhood. Lauren could have her own room, maybe even a playroom. Your mom needs care, and you'd be there to help her. Plus, we could rent out this apartment and earn some extra money." I had to admit, Aaron's idea made sense. Mom's house was much nicer than our apartment, and living there would save me the trouble of commuting to take care of her. But it still felt strange. "I don't know, Aaron," I said, hesitating. "It's Mom's house. We can't just move in." "Ask her," he said. "I bet she'd love the company. It's better than a nursing home, right?" He had a point. Mom had always made it clear she didn't want to end up in a nursing home, which she called a prison for old people. Maybe this could actually work. The next day, I brought it up with Mom. To my surprise, her face lit up. "Oh, Julie," she said, her voice weak but happy. "I'd love that. This old house could use some life again." And just like that, the decision was made. We were moving into Mom's house. As I started packing up our apartment, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was the start of something big. I just didn't know if it would be good or bad. Aaron was thrilled about the move. He kept talking about the garden he'd plant and the man cave he'd set up in the basement. Even Lauren was excited about having a bigger room. But living at Mom's house brought a whole new set of challenges. I quickly realized that taking care of a stroke patient was a full-time job, and I wasn't prepared for it. After a week of sleepless nights and stressful days, I decided to hire a nurse to help out during the day. Nurse Amber was a lifesaver. She came every morning at 9 a.m. and stayed until 7 p.m., taking care of Mom's basic needs. But evenings and nights were all on me. I'd come home from work completely exhausted, only to start my second shift as Mom's caretaker. The stroke had made it hard for her to speak, which left her frustrated and quiet most of the time. I'd help her with everything, even changing her diaper, always trying to give her as much dignity as I could. Taking care of Mom was a lot of work. I had to give her sponge baths, massage her muscles so they wouldn't get weak, give her medications, and make her dinner. It was exhausting, both physically and emotionally. Seeing my once strong, independent mom like this broke my heart every day. But I did it because I loved her and because I knew she'd do the same for me if the roles were reversed. What I didn't expect was Lauren's reaction. She was 11 and I thought she was old enough to understand, and maybe even help. I was so wrong. One evening, as I was walking to Mom's room, I saw Lauren dart past me, holding her nose. "Lauren," I called. "Where are you going?" "Don't you want to say hi to Grandma's?" She shook her head. "No way. It smells gross in there." I was shocked. "Lauren, that's not a nice thing to say. Grandma needs our help and support right now." "I don't care," she yelled back. "She's disgusting. I'm not going near her." Before I could say anything else, She ran to her room and slammed the door. I stood there, stunned and hurt. Where had my sweet little girl gone? I turned to Aaron for support, but he just shrugged. Not my problem, he said whenever I asked for help with Mom. I didn't sign up for this. It hurt, but I couldn't completely blame him. None of us had signed up for this. Still, I felt resentful as I watched him spend time with Lauren, playing video games or taking her out for ice cream, while I was stuck with adult diapers and medication schedules. The only bright spot was seeing how close Aaron and Lauren had become. They'd always had a good relationship, but now they were even closer. I'd hear them laughing in the living room or see them working on her homework at the kitchen table. It warmed my heart, even though it made me feel more alone. 3 years passed in a blur of caregiving, medications, and stolen moments of sleep. Mom's condition had stabilized, but she still needed constant care. I was exhausted, but I'd found a routine that worked. Then, one Saturday, everything fell apart. The phone rang while I was changing Mom's sheets. It was Mrs. Robert, our old neighbor from the apartment complex. "Julie, dear," she said, her voice full of concern, "I thought you should know. I've been seeing Aaron around a lot lately. He's always with young women. Different ones. Very pretty." I thanked her and hung up, my mind spinning. That night, I confronted Aaron. "Oh, those are just potential tenants," he said smoothly. "I'm showing them the apartment." I wanted to believe Aaron, I really did. But doubt had already crept in, and it wouldn't go away. A week later, I found the proof, a lipstick stain on the collar of his white shirt. It was a perfect red kiss. My hands shook as I held it up to the light, trying to convince myself it was just a pen mark or a food stain. But deep down, I knew better. I waited for his next business trip to find out the truth. With trembling hands, I unlocked the door to our old apartment. I could already hear noises coming from the bedroom, and they confirmed my worst fears. When I opened the door, there was Aaron, in our bed, with a woman I'd never seen before. They scrambled to cover themselves, but it was too late. The damage was done. "Julie," Aaron said, looking more annoyed than ashamed. "What are you doing here?" I couldn't speak. I just stood there, staring at the scene as my world fell apart. Aaron sighed and said coldly, "Look, I'm sorry you had to find out this way, but let's be honest, Julie. I'm bored. You're always busy with your mom, and this is exciting." His words cut deeper than anything. Without saying a word, I turned and walked out. My mind was already racing, thinking about what I needed to do next. The divorce was ugly. Aaron fought me every step of the way. In the end, we stood before a judge, dividing our life together like it was nothing more than a list of things. Then came the hardest part, deciding custody of Lauren. At 13, she was old enough to share her opinion, and what she said broke my heart. "I want to live with Dad," she said firmly. "I don't want to be around Grandma anymore. It's gross and depressing, and Mom's always trying to make me help." The judge nodded and considered Aaron's higher income, the stability he could offer, and Lauren's choice. In the end, Aaron got primary custody. I was devastated, but I tried to focus on what was best for Lauren. Aaron could give her things I couldn't, like private school, dance lessons, and summer camps. We agreed that I'd have weekends and holidays with her. On paper, it looked fair, but to me, it felt like my heart had been ripped out. I watched Lauren pack her things, excitedly talking about her new room at Aaron's house. It felt like I was losing everything. My marriage, my daughter, and even my home, which now felt more like a hospital than a place to live. The first few months after the divorce were hard. I lived for my weekends with Lauren. We'd go to the movies, have ice cream at the park, or just hang out at home. It wasn't perfect, but it was something. Then things started to change. Lauren began canceling our plans. "I have a sleepover," Lauren would say, or "Dad's taking me to a concert." I tried to be understanding, to be the cool mom who didn't make a big deal out of it. But every time she canceled, it felt like a knife twisting in my heart. Soon, the cancellations became more frequent. Weeks would go by without a visit. When I called, my calls went straight to voicemail. When I texted, I'd get one-word replies, if she replied at all. One Wednesday, after another canceled visit, I decided to call Lauren directly. The phone rang once, twice, and then went to voicemail. I tried again, but this time, a robotic voice told me my number had been blocked. My hands were shaking as I dialed Aaron's number. "What do you want, Julie?" he said, his voice cold and annoyed. "Aaron, I can't reach Lauren. She's blocked my number." "What's going on?" There was a long pause before he spoke. "Look, Julie, Lauren doesn't want to talk to you right now. You need to respect that." "Respect that?" I said, my voice shaking. "She's my daughter. She's also her own person with her own feelings," Aaron snapped. "And right now, she doesn't want to be around all the negativity at your place. The sickness, the sadness. Lauren needs stability. She needs a normal family." "A normal family?" I asked, barely holding back tears. "Lauren sees Hannah as a mother figure now," he said. "She has a normal life here. 2 parents, no sick relatives, no drama. Why can't you just let her be happy?" I couldn't speak. Tears were streaming down my face, and I was glad Aaron couldn't see me. "Look," he said, his tone softening a little, "I know this is hard, but if Lauren doesn't want to see you right now, you need to respect that. Don't force it. You'll only push her further away." I wanted to scream, to argue, to demand my rights as her mother. But a small voice in my head told me he might be right. If I pushed too hard, I might lose Lauren forever. I sank to the floor, clutching the phone to my chest, and cried. My little girl, my Lauren, didn't want me anymore. Someone else was being her mom. Someone else was kissing her goodnight, helping her with homework, and sharing the moments I was missing. Hours later, Mom found me still sitting on the floor. She'd managed to shuffle over with her walker, her face full of concern. "Julie," she said, her voice stronger than it had been in months. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" I looked up at her, the woman who had been my rock for so many years, the one I had been taking care of. In that moment, I felt like a child again, looking to my mother for comfort. "Oh, Mom," I cried, reaching for her hand. "I've lost her. I've lost my little girl," I whispered. Mom squeezed my hand. Her grip was weak, but her love was strong. "No, Julie," she said gently. "You haven't lost her. She's just lost right now. She'll find her way back to you. You'll see." 15 years passed. It's strange how time can feel like it flies and drags at the same time. Over the years, Mom's condition got a little better. She regained some of her speech and could move more, but taking care of her was still a full-time job. When Mom passed away peacefully in her sleep, I felt both deep sadness and, shamefully, relief. Suddenly, I was alone in the big, empty house. The silence was overwhelming. No more beeping machines, no medication schedules, no therapy sessions. It was just me, walking through rooms full of memories. Then one day, out of the blue, my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, but I recognized the voice right away. "Mom, it's Lauren," she said. I was hoping we could meet to talk. We agreed to meet at a cafe downtown. As I sat there waiting, my hands shook as I gripped my coffee cup. When she walked in, it took me a moment to realize it was her. Gone was the awkward preteen I remembered. In her place stood a confident, beautiful young woman. "Hi, Mom," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. At first, we made small talk. It was a little awkward. She told me about her job in marketing, her hobbies, and her friends. Then she dropped the news. "I'm getting married," she said, pulling an envelope from her purse. "Here's an invitation." My heart filled with both happiness and sadness. My little girl was getting married, but I'd missed so much of her life. "Oh, Lauren, that's wonderful news," I said. "I'm so happy for you. If you need help with the expenses." She cut me off. "Actually, Mom, that's why I wanted to meet," she said, her tone serious. "I wanted to talk about Grandma's inheritance, the house, her savings. I want them." I felt like I'd been slapped. "Excuse me?" I said, trying to stay calm. "Look, Mom," she said, leaning forward. "That house is in a great area. It's worth a lot of money. After the wedding, Dennis and I want to live there and start our family." Anger bubbled up inside me. "Lauren, you haven't been to that house in over 11 years, I said. You called it disgusting. You said it felt like a tomb. She waved her hand dismissively. I was a kid then. I've grown up. Times have changed. And let's be honest, I'm Grandma's only grandchild. She would have wanted me to have it. I stared at her, shocked. Wanted you to have it? I said, my voice rising. Lauren, you didn't even come to her funeral. You didn't call. You didn't write for years. That's ancient history, she said sharply. The point is, that house should be mine. I deserve a comfortable life, Lauren said. Deserve? I was shaking with anger now. You didn't do anything to help when Grandma was sick. I gave up my life to care for her, and now you think you deserve her house. Lauren's face turned cold. Fine, she said, her voice sharp. If that's how you want to play it, I'll sue. I'll get what's mine. She stood up quickly, snatching the wedding invitation from the table. You know what? Forget it. You're not invited to the wedding. I don't need your negativity there, and I don't need your permission to take what's mine. She stormed out of the cafe, leaving me sitting there in shock. The daughter I had loved and missed for so many years was gone. In her place was a stranger, cold and greedy. The days after that disastrous meeting passed in a blur. I went back and forth between anger, sadness, and a deep emptiness. But as the days passed, something surprising happened. I felt relieved. The weight of hoping for a relationship with Lauren, of longing for her to come back to me, was gone. In its place was a strange kind of peace. I didn't go to Lauren's wedding. I didn't send a gift or a card. Instead, I spent that day volunteering at an animal shelter. The love and care I gave to the abandoned animals felt healing in a way. It felt right. A few days later, curiosity got the better of me, and I looked at Lauren's social media. There she was, glowing in her white dress, smiling at her new husband. For a moment, my heart ached for what could have been. But then I saw it, a long post she'd written about her cruel mother who didn't come to her wedding and refused to give her the inheritance she deserved. I read it twice, amazed at how easily she twisted the truth into lies. Part of me wanted to comment, to set the record straight. But what was the point? The people who mattered, my family, the ones who saw me care for Mom all those years, they knew the truth. As for everyone else, their opinions, based on one social media post, didn't matter to me. About a week later, my cousin Abigail called. Her voice was a mix of anger and concern. Julie, I thought you should know. Lauren's been talking about suing you for your mom's estate. I sighed. Let her try. That's just it, Abigail continued. She talked to a lawyer and he told her she doesn't have a case. Your mom left everything to you. It's all clear in the will. I wasn't surprised. I felt a mix of sadness and relief. This wasn't the ending I had hoped for, but at least the fight was over before it started. I couldn't help but laugh a little. Of course, Mom had taken care of everything. She was always the practical one. Thanks for letting me know, Abigail, I said. But honestly, I don't care what Lauren does anymore. She's made her choices. There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then Abigail said, I'm proud of you, Julie. After everything you've been through, you deserve some peace. When I hung up, I looked around the house. Mom's house, now my house. Every corner held memories, some painful, some beautiful. But for the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe here. I walked to the window and looked out at the garden Mom had loved so much. It was overgrown, but I could still see its potential. Maybe it was time to bring it back to life. As I stood there, making plans to visit the garden center, I realized something. The chapter of my life centered on Lauren, the hope, the pain, the longing was finally closing. But that didn't mean my story was over. Not even close. A few months later, the garden was in full bloom. I'd poured myself into restoring it, finding peace in nurturing something beautiful. The roses Mom loved were just starting to bloom, their scent filling the air. As I trimmed a bush, my phone buzzed in my pocket. It was an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me press the green button. Hello, Mom. Lauren's voice came through, thick with tears. Mom, I need your help. I froze, pruning shears still in hand. Lauren? What's wrong? I'm pregnant, she sobbed. And we're struggling, Mom. I need money.
You have to help me.
You can't leave your grandchild with nothing. I stayed silent as she kept talking, her words becoming more frantic and accusing. You abandoned me, Mom. You never tried to contact me, never fought for me. And now you're going to abandon your grandchild, too? Something inside me shifted, not with anger, but with a calm, steady resolve. Lauren, I said, my voice firm. That's enough. She stopped, probably shocked that I'd interrupted her.
I never abandoned you, I said.
I sent child support every month, without fail. I called, I texted, I emailed. You blocked my number. You chose your stepmother. You made your decisions, and I respected them, even when they broke my heart. But Mom… No, Lauren, I'm not finished, I said. You're an adult now. You're about to be a parent yourself. It's time to take responsibility for your choices and your life. I'm not your bank. I'm not your safety net. And I'm not going to be manipulated with lies and guilt trips. I could hear Lauren breathing heavily on the other end of the line. If you need help, I said calmly, go to your father and stepmother. They're your real family now, remember? The ones you chose. I've made peace with that, and now you need to make peace with the consequences of your choices.
You can't do this, Lauren cried.
I'm your daughter's. Yes, you are, I said, my voice softening a little. And I'll always love the little girl you used to be. But I don't know the woman you've become, and I don't think I want to. I took a deep breath. Goodbye, Lauren. I wish you and your child the best, but please don't contact me again. Before she could say anything else, I ended the call. My hand shook a little as I put the phone down. For a moment, I just stood there in the garden, surrounded by the life I had nurtured. The weight of what had just happened hung heavy in the air. But slowly, I felt lighter. The last ties to a painful past had been cut. The what-ifs were finally put to rest. I looked around at the garden and the house beyond it. This was my life now, not shaped by loss or regret, but by the choices I would make going forward. I picked up my pruning shears and turned back to the rose bush. There was still work to do, still beauty to grow, and for the first time in years, I felt free. Truly free.